"I want to show this to the world," a woman spoke in the video, her voice a bit choppy. "Might be a cheap phone." She breathed heavily as she ran after the two monsters ransacking Serenade Bazaar to record them. I could tell she was on the second floor from the view of her camera looking down on me and the snake mutant fighting from store to store. This was the reason I didn't see her, that and I was too focused on killing the mutant. Good thing she had the presence of mind to go up and have some semblance of safety while she did the insensible thing of chasing after murderous monsters. She turned her phone's camera and showed her face. "That Adumbrae you see there? The woman in red. She was inside my shop. I thought she was going to kill me. Hey, I know you." It was the woman managing that bizarre occult store selling Anti-Adumbrae products that were probably a scam. I was happy I recognized a person I met only once that I absolutely didn't care about. Usually, I couldn't recognize even people I met every day, like those in this building. To be fair, this woman had a really peculiar appearance, an almost ghost-like complexion, while sporting those mystical earrings on her ears and lips. She continued explaining, "But she didn't kill me. I even tried to hit her with this. She showed that stupid iron brand she wielded when we met. There was no reaction from her. The symbol of dolor should have caused intense pain to the impure of heart, however, it didn't affect her." "What could it mean?" she said dramatically. "Now look." The view was once again on me and the snake mutant. Memories of the fight came back as I watched the video. Both of us came out of Hardy's hardware store. I was just done shopping, carrying rakes and pitchforks from the gardening section. My problem with the mutant was that it wouldn't die because of the tons of heads it had inside its body. And I needed to stop it while I ate it. After I caught up with it, I proceeded to pin it to the ground with various gardening implements, taking a page out of the book of the mysterious spear user. "Look at that," the occult lady said, "as I did to the mutant what I did to the poor frog in biology class back in high school, but with rakes instead of pins. She's fighting this other Adumbrae. She saved me from it." "Saved you? What was she talking about?" "The snake mutant didn't go to her store. She was the one who chased me. But I wasn't one to turn down getting credit for something I didn't do." She gasped as I ripped open the mutant's body and the head spilled out. The mutant was still fighting back. I started gorging on it so that my eating would be considered part of fighting and wouldn't come under rule number 2. I heard the woman mumbling a prayer. The camera was shaking. Maybe she knew something about the heads. Or she thought she knew something bad about them. Then the police drones arrived. I was able to bring down one of the flying drones with a well-aimed throw using one of the creepy heads. I clapped and cheered myself on in the video. I nearly forgot about that part. I realized just how great I was at throwing stuff. I also hit Mr. Snake with a huge globe, and I hit Mr. Ogre in the arena with an axe. That was 3 for 3. When the shooting began, the occult lady ran away, and that was the end of it. I checked the other posts on the page to learn more about this woman and this SVS group. It was absolute garbage. This woman went by the alias of Initiate Reginus, maybe a nod to Corbring Initiates. I couldn't find what her real name was. She was one of the founders of SVS, a group of random delusional people who presented themselves as prospective Corbring's initiates yet to be given a chance by the Mother Core, trying to find ways to combat the Adumbrae menace on their own. These ways were a combination of pseudoscience and the occult. They obviously weren't related to any official groups fighting Adumbrae and didn't seem to be affiliated with any of the major Corbring worshipping religions. I didn't know what to make of them. It was good no one really cared about their articles like, Top 10 House Plants to Ward Off Adumbrae, Is Your Neighbor an Adumbrae, and, Find Out Which Overseer You Should Worship. The posts on their page barely had any comments or reactions, and they seemed to be a small group no one paid any attention to. Until now. The video of Reginus, I was just going to call her that for now, drew thousands to their snippet page. This was going to be fun. Maybe social media wasn't too bad. Once again, my phone buzzed. I scowled as I picked it up. Phew, it was just the pizza guy. Yay, unhealthy food, I said, excitedly skipping to the door. Dean must have thought I was already asleep. I had to go down to get my food because the management didn't allow delivery people to go up. The resident key card was required to be able to use the elevator. This condominium was a bit on the expensive and exclusive side, which was a wonder why that stupid ATM wasn't fixed yet. Ugh, I said as I jogged through the corridor. There was a foul smell. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I rushed to the elevator to escape it. I hoped this wouldn't ruin my appetite. It would be entertaining to read the comments of the people on the video while eating pizza that was if the video wasn't taken down yet. Shit, I muttered, I should have downloaded it. But the elevator door already closed and the floor numbers started ticking down. I guess I could still find another copy of the video later. Alone in the elevator, I considered the implications of getting caught on video. When I was in the mall, I avoided the crew from TV5 because it was way better for survival to keep a low profile. The bid would have less information on me. Perhaps more importantly, the 2MS wouldn't know I was still hanging around the city. Was someone able to inform them I was in the club before the bid raid commenced? I imagine they'd be furious if they knew their wolf nemesis that destroyed their base at the docks was also present at the club. But here we are now. I didn't have the power to turn back time. Still, I was very happy with the video. I looked like an absolute badass. I wasn't the type to seek attention from the public at large because that'd mean I wanted validation from people I didn't care about. Attention-seeking equated to giving value to the thoughts of others, and that was dumb. The only time I cared about the impressions of people was when it was connected to the persona I was cultivating. Normally, when I built a face, it was only for a person or a small group. I'd take into account the personalities of those people to tailor the perfect face to present to them to further my goals. I hadn't yet made a face to present to literally everyone. I think that would be like the politicians or something, the ones who needed a face to take advantage of a large number of people. Me. I was satisfied with my small social circle. How would you control the reaction of people you hadn't even met? I used to shudder at the thought of that lack of control over my face. Maybe I'd be able to learn that skill someday. In this instance, however, my Blanchette face was shown to the world. Come to think of it, this was my first face shown to the public, in some sense. Did I do a good job on it? Since this was the first face I showed to the general public, albeit an actual supernatural transformation instead of a persona, I was concerned with how it would be built. My transformation was meant to be a badass fighter, monstrous even, dangerous and feral. Beautiful and deadly at the same time. And the video uploaded by Reginus showed exactly that. I was satisfied with her work. Maybe, when Serenade Bazaar opened again, I could buy something from her store as thanks. When I exited the elevator on the ground floor, I spotted that woman who seemingly hated Dean. She didn't so much as glance my way when I passed by her. She was too busy complaining about something to the janitor. I just moved in and the hallway on my floor stinks. I've already called the attention. I shrugged my shoulders. If Dean was here, would she go to the aid of the poor, bullied janitor? Or was she the type to join in complaining? Not my problem. Well, it kinda was, but the smell didn't enter my room. I could enjoy my pizza in peace. Speaking of pizza, here was another random person I could recognize by face, the pizza delivery guy. In the entire condominium lobby, there was only one sofa that had a view of the hallway leading to the elevators, and he always sat on that spot. If it was occupied, he would stand somewhere where he could immediately see me. When he spotted me exiting the elevator, he stood up straight like he was a soldier and a general passed by. "Hi there, Ramon," I said, reading his nameplate. He always wore his nameplate from the time he noticed I would mention his name only when he had it on. He smiled at me. "Good evening, Miss Errand." I never gave him my name, but it was on the credit card I used to order, so it wasn't like it was a secret. Other girls might find this creepy. I just let him be. If he was around, my pizza always got delivered quickly. Here's your order. Thanks, I said, taking it from him. I'm always amazed you could eat this all by yourself, he hastily said before I could turn away. Hey, you shouldn't say that to girls. Sorry. I was just thinking if what you said was true. That you could eat it all. I could. I protested playfully. I may be wrong here, but I assumed he had a crush on me. I noticed he started acting extra nice to me when I told him the pizza I ordered was all for myself. Why would I lie about that? I'd say if I had friends over, or even a boyfriend to help me eat, which I don't. You don't have a boyfriend? His face beamed upon hearing that. Then he quickly pulled back. Sorry. That was too personal. He wasn't bad looking, but he was way younger than me. I think he had mentioned he was just starting college and took up part-time jobs to pay for it. Admirable and all, but too young for me. I did flirt with him once in a while to make him happy and to make sure he keeps being nice to me and promptly delivered my food. Yes, you shouldn't ask that of your customers, I told him sternly. Sorry, he said. I should get going, he sniffed the air. What's that smell? Huh? I smelled myself. Not you, he hastily corrected the misunderstanding. I was saying there's an odd smell. And it just got stronger. You're saying it's me. I pouted in a cutesy way, but I also sniffed the air, concerned I gave off a weird smell. Not body odor but something related to being an Adumbrae. No. He inhaled again, then gagged. Like there's something that died. Like dried blood of a dead animal, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe a dead rat. They'll clean that up soon. I'll go up now. Yeah. He looked dismayed. Maybe next I can help you eat. Nothing, he said. He pulled his cap low to hide his face reddening with embarrassment. He rushed to the doors, slipped, and fell on the floor. Fine. I was feeling magnanimous. I set my pizza down on the sofa and hurried over. Are you okay? I said, extending my hand to him. He didn't accept it but picked himself up as quickly as he could. I'm fine, he mumbled and rushed out of the building. Heh, I said. I bet he'd regret not accepting my hand when he had time to think about it. I already offered him a bone, yet he refused it. Oh well, time to go back up. The foul smell was no longer there when I got to my floor. I was concerned it was something connected to me when the pizza guy mentioned it. Like what if some substance from the snake mutant stuck to me after I transformed back to my cute self? But Dean didn't mention anything, so it must be something with the place, not me. I checked the snippet page again of Reginus and her SVS group and found that it was blocked. Wow, they act fast, I said. I wasn't sure what the bid was trying to hide, but they had their work cut out for them. People were going to spread that video. What to do now? 7 p.m., still early. I had plenty of time to relax. Let's say about 3.5 hours. I could waste time binging a new series while pigging on pizza, maybe squeeze in an hour or so of nap in there, then I'd go out. Where? To the place where Vanessa died. I swear I was just going to pay respects to my deceased friend. Or maybe poke around and see if I could enter the tunnels below. We'll see. Beep. 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 It's time already. I mumbled. I instinctively stretched out my hand and slammed it on my alarm clock. I felt my hand go lower than it was supposed to, paired with the sound of crunching plastic. Oh shit. I forced myself awake, realizing what I did. Mental note to buy a new alarm clock tomorrow, check. I didn't need an alarm to wake myself up in the morning, I always got up at 5 in the morning on the dot no matter what time I fell asleep. But when I took a nap, I needed my trusty alarm clock to wake me at a specific time. And now, it was busted. I jumped to my feet and prepared for my first solo mission. Well, it wasn't exactly a mission. A tour, more like. No shenanigans, no putting myself in danger. I was just going to check out what happened to Vanessa's body, that was it. She was my friend after all. Just being a good friend. If I found an entrance to the tunnels, that would be a pleasant surprise. And if I found something to eat in said tunnels, then that would be an even more pleasant surprise. Pleasanter. Was pleasanter a word? I wore the new clothes and sneakers I bought, including the reversible hoodie. And I stowed one anti-dust cloth mask in my pocket. Let's see how I look, I said, standing in front of the mirror. The gray color of the hoodie wasn't fashionably offensive, I was reserving its dark blue side for later. Just a normal girl with no illegal intent, no need to be wary of me. Before going out, I checked if I placed my leftover pizza in the fridge. I wasn't going to repeat that mistake from last time. Outside, along the corridor, the disgusting smell was no longer here. Good thing they cleaned it up. I pressed the down button and waited for the elevator. 10:43, I said, checking my watch. I rarely wore a watch, but I had to now because I left my phone behind to avoid getting my location traced in case the bid was monitoring phone signals. The subway operated until 2:30 a.m. and I had to ride a train to get to and back from Clover Heights where Rob's burnt garage was located. The elevator arrived and the doors opened. There was someone else inside. A balding, middle-aged man wearing a business suit, maybe just coming home late from work. He didn't greet me like other residents usually did, so I also didn't say anything to him. I would have preferred it if I didn't meet anyone on the way out, but I guess it was still kind of early for this bustling city. I just hummed to the tune of the elevator music as we went down. Hold on, if we were going down, then this guy beside me wasn't returning to his unit. He had worked this late at night. Upon reaching the ground floor, I didn't immediately step out of the elevator, waiting for the man to go out. But he didn't. Did he want me to go out first as a sign of being a gentleman? Sure. I stepped out then slowly walked so he would eventually get ahead of me. I looked back, confused. He still didn't go out of the elevator. The doors closed and it went up again. Another weirdo, I said under my breath. I didn't meet anyone else except for the guard at the lobby who was watching a Mexican soap opera on his small TV. He waved to greet me. And I waved back, explaining, going to jog at the park. I crossed the street, looking left and right. After I was certain no one was around, I entered the narrow alleyway beside West Limon's apartment. Continuing on the winding footpath starting from the back of the old apartment building, I eventually came to Lowen Park. I started jogging to not look out of place. Many people from the surrounding condominiums and apartments exercised in this park at night among other things. Thankfully, I didn't meet anyone doing those, among other things. Instead of using my normal route to the train station, I chose this path that Romello and I took the day we got kidnapped. This was shorter, but I couldn't ride my bike throughout except for the short part passing the bike bridge, so I usually took the longer but smoother route when I went to Alois University. After nearly getting lost a few times navigating alleyways in the shadows of buildings, jumping over some fences, and avoiding a drunk dude vomiting behind a dumpster, I emerged from behind the Quality Mart right across Riano train station. This was only my second time passing through here, and although I remembered the route from last time, it was like a different place at night. Fortunately, the moon, while not a complete circle, still gave off the light comparable to that of a full moon. Mental note to buy a small flashlight. I peered from the side of the convenience store, surveying the station across the street. The yellowing light of the decrepit but miraculously still working lamppost flickered from the corner. Other than a few people exiting the station and some cars passing by, everything was relatively peaceful in this part of the city. Here goes. I held up my hand and summoned my Blanchette face. The liquid rising out of the crystals on my palm lit the dark alley in gold, and then in red as the face solidified. I brought the red snout to my mouth. I let out a low growl of satisfaction as I savored the addicting power. It was still awesome, but I was getting used to it. I immediately noticed the chilly air caressing my exposed skin. Maybe I should have also bought clothes for my transformation. Why didn't I think of that when I was shopping? Another mental note. I didn't want to enter the station as errand. The cameras and people who'd see me would contradict my alibi of jogging in the park. Of course, I also wasn't going to enter with my Blanchette form either. But I needed to ride the train, just not in it. On it. Most of La Esperanza's train system was underground, but there were portions of the tracks that were street level or on elevated railways. The tracks going out of Riano Station ran through the middle of the road and descended underground right before the intersection of Riano and Mendez STS. That was my ticket. So here I was, in the middle of the road, looking over the concrete barrier that separated the tracks from the rest of the traffic, checking for the perfect place to jump down to the train. The tracks in this part were already below street level, sloping down into the opening of the tunnel. I estimated there was about a 15-foot drop from the top of the concrete barrier down to the tracks, but if the train was here, it would be just a few feet down to its roof. The train would also start slowly from the station, and only picked up speed after it went underground, so I was confident I could land safely. People did this in movies, right? A few minutes after, a train left the station, rumbling towards me. I leaped on top of the concrete barrier and waited for it. One wrong move and I might slip off the train and get squished. The danger and the exhilarating prospect of riding on top of the train would have filled a normal person with adrenaline, but it did not affect me. This was nothing compared to fighting monsters. The earth shook, the train rolling below. After about half of it had passed, I held my breath and jumped down. It was only a short drop, as I correctly guessed, and I landed squarely on my 2 feet, bending down to maintain balance. Yes. Then the train accelerated. I tittered a few steps back, trying to stop myself from losing balance, but I stepped on some slimy grime and lost my footing. I rolled backward just as the train entered the tunnel. I stretched out my claws and hung on, flattening myself on the roof to avoid the ceiling of the tunnel. Phew. See, no problemo. Oh, my claws. I buried them too deep into the train's roof in a moment of panic. Hopefully, they didn't go through the ceiling. If they did, the passengers probably wouldn't even notice anyway, too tired from a day's work and wanting to just get home. I also hoped that all the clanking of this aging train masked the ruckus of my landing. No screaming yet. Okay, yeah, no problemo. What was that slime that nearly made me fall off? Yuck. I also noticed my abs and legs were covered with dirt and other repulsive stuff I'd rather not know about from laying down on the roof. I shuddered as I tried to wipe them off with one hand while my other kept holding on. I've been in way more disgusting situations, but I just found this too icky. Getting on the train was the first hurdle. Several minutes passed and the train slowed down as it approached the next station. This was the next hurdle. I dropped down the side of the train, not facing the station platform, hanging from the roof while waiting for some passengers to disembark and new ones to get on. With this, I avoided getting spotted by the cameras on the station platform as well as by the people waiting for the train. I only waited for a minute and then climbed back on top as the train left the station. This was an easy way to roam the city since I had no car. And even if I had a car, it would be risky to use it. Hold on, I did have a car. Technically, it was Rob's getaway car, but he's dead, so it was kind of mine. Too bad. I told Bianca to help me get rid of it, including other evidence that could be traced back to me that she could find. I was about 99% certain Bianca would be on my side for the foreseeable future. While I did have more to lose if both of us got caught, I was no longer a human compared to her, plus she had the money and resources to wiggle out of tight spots. That wasn't how our minds worked. We always had more to lose in our own view since we didn't care shit about other people. Unless we specifically want someone to lose. In that case, we wouldn't care how much we would lose to bring down our target. I was sure Bianca had nothing against me, she just wanted to use me to achieve her goals. Which meant she valued not getting caught, which included me not getting caught. I was sure she was going to help me until she got what she wanted. Whatever it really is. I just rode this train until I got as near as I could to Clover Heights. On to my third hurdle, getting off the train. I made my way to the end of the train, crawling carefully on its roof, making sure my claws had a secure hold before moving forward. An easy enough job with my strength and agility. Just a single dude sleeping, I thought, checking the last train car through the back window. I slowly lowered myself to the back of the train. I focused my attention on the walls of the tunnel, waiting for an exit sign. Subway tunnels have an exit spaced out along its length for people to use in case of emergency. Obviously, I wasn't going to exit through the station. There. I jumped off the train, diving onto the rough ground, making sure to stay in between the tracks. My sensei would be proud of my perfect judo roll. Then I leaped on the walkway running the length of the tunnel and headed to the exit I spotted. Movies taught me that the metal tracks had an electric current running through them. Not sure exactly which of these were electrified, but better not to touch any of them. I emerged above the street in the outskirts of Clover Heights. I couldn't believe I just went through all of that and everything went splendidly well. Perhaps I had a knack for sneaking around. Now for the last hurdle in my pilgrimage to Vanessa's resting place, I had to pass through the bustling southern area of Clover Heights before reaching its northern part, the semi-ghost town area of the neighborhood. Of course, I also had a plan for this. I transformed back to my original body, turned my hoodie inside out, and put on my mask. Voila! I looked like some skinny wannabe gangster kid or something. I made sure the hoodie I bought was at least a size larger so it wasn't easy to tell I was a woman. After aimlessly roaming Clover Heights, avoiding people as much as could, I eventually found the street I drove on when I left Rob's burning garage last Saturday. Oh wait, that was already early morning Sunday. I just had to follow this road and I'll be at my goal soon. There were a couple of police cruisers waiting further down the road parked on either side of a barricade in the middle of the street. They were clearly intent on blocking people from going into the northern part of Clover Heights. I could guess why. I sighed, watching them from behind a telephone pole a block away. Did I need to turn back now? I looked around for a good vantage point so I could see if there was another way I could take and if there was any other sign of danger. The highest building near me stood at just 3 floors tall. I snuck in the small space between it and the neighboring pawn shop, both of which were already closed at this hour. Behind the dumpster, I pulled my mask down and put on my Blanchette face. I climbed the wall as fast as I could before anyone passed by. It was a breeze scaling the building with my claws that easily bit into the bricks, as easy as swimming with flippers. I bet I could actually do this with my original body. Next time, I'll try. From the top of the building, I spotted red and blue lights in the distance. I exhaled in disappointment. More cops were roaming the neighborhood where Rob's garage was located. The very definition of danger. No matter what mental gymnastics I did, there was no way I could win an argument in court that it was safe for me to try and enter that area. My shoulders slumped down. Fine. I was going home. The temporary rule number 9 had to be followed. I turned around, walking slowly with a frown or as much as a frown that I could manage with a snout and a mouth full of fangs, which turned to be more of a snarl, and wondered if I should just finish the rest of the pizza and put myself in a food coma so I would immediately fall asleep and not think of doing any other stupid things to do with my power tonight. You're already leaving? I spun around, my claws extended, ready to attack whoever it was that spoke or instantly flee if needed. It was a guy sitting behind the water tank. My eyes caught a glint of the moonlight off the bladed end of the long pole he was holding that poked out from the shadows. Just a guy. With a spear. A guy with a spear. Stay or run. Decide quickly. Run. Stupid idea. This guy could easily stop me if he wanted to. If I wasn't mistaken about his power, he could skewer anyone and anything he could see, even if it was through the TV. As long as he got his eyes on me, I was cinnamon-crusted French toast. How I wished I had plenty of extra brains like my snake mutant buddy. Stay. Better idea. Rather, there was no other option. If he wanted to kill me, he already would've. Which meant he wanted something from me and I was safe, but I didn't know for how long. I dropped my clawed hands to my sides and tried to appear as unthreatening as possible. But I also tried to give off an air of confidence, standing with a hint of swagger, my hips swayed slightly to the left with my hand on it. Sass could go a long way with impressions. The only card I held was that he didn't know what my abilities were. I should capitalize on that and try to gain an equal footing in this encounter. Could I draw his eyes somewhere and make my escape? Just relax. Wait for an opening. He dusted his butt as he stood up, then stepped out of the shadows to present himself. He wore a blue and yellow striped t-shirt with the bearded smiley face logo of Quality Mart on it, stylishly atrocious calf-length trousers, and a bandana tied across the lower half of his face. The spear he wielded was silver in color with serpentine carvings that looked almost like they were alive. I could have sworn they were slithering beneath the gaze of the moonlight. With his left hand, he held his spear behind his back. Did he want to tell me he meant no harm? Are you supposed to go there, he asked pointing north, in the direction of Rob's garage, but keeping his eyes on me. I simply shrugged. My mind flipped through the possibilities of his identity. Bid? Surely not. Anti-Adumbrae? One of the goons of the 2MS. How about a Corbring? If he was a Corbring, why the stupid outfit? They usually wore uniforms with helmets to hide their identities rather than this gaudy bandana. Please don't let him be a Corbring. The shy type, I see. His eyes narrowed. There are ways I could make you talk. I tensed for half a second when he said that, adrenaline kicking in, but I forced myself to calm down. He chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I'm just kidding," apparently noticing my minute reaction. He had an accent I couldn't place. I guessed English wasn't his first language, but he learnt it in an expensive school abroad. The way he spoke was like an English teacher with exaggerated pronunciation, but I could tell he was attempting to mask his original accent. "Just trying to make conversation in this beautiful night," he said, gesturing at the sky. Would he get annoyed and attack me if I continued keeping silent? But it would be stupid of me to open my snout and show him why I couldn't answer, because then he'd know I wasn't human, most likely an Adumbrae. Judging by his attempts to kill my snake mutant buddy, the possibility was high he'd also want to kill me once he knew what I was. Does he already know who or what I am? He wasn't there at the Serenade Bazaar, otherwise he would have continued attacking the mutant even after I broke the TV news crew's camera. The camera couldn't have caught a glimpse of me. But what if he saw the video posted by Reginus on Snippet? That must be it. Why else would he confront me? "You're ignoring me," he melodramatically tooted, closing his eyes and shaking his head. "Stop trying so hard to think of how to escape and just focus in the moment." He opened his eyes and winked at me. Could have I made a run for it? His spear was still behind his back, although I had the feeling he was baiting me. "Or are you not answering me because I didn't introduce myself first?" I nodded, going along with the conversation. "I see. It was ungentlemanly of me to suddenly accost a girl this late of an hour without at least telling her my name." I nodded again while tilting my head coyly to the side. It was so hard to try and fish information from him without being able to speak. With this bandana on my face, I do look like a mugger. "Did you think I'm a mugger?" I shook head and waved my hand down to indicate that it was a silly thought. "Where are my manners? Allow me to introduce myself." He bowed low, super low, making it really obvious he was no longer looking at me. He drew his right leg back, scraping the ground, like that fancy way to bow in a medieval royal court, accompanied with stretching his right hand to his side. I am Corbring. As that word registered in my brain, another word popped up. Run. I pivoted and dashed to the edge of the building away from him. I only took a couple of steps when a spear burst out of my left kneecap. It embedded itself deep into the concrete rooftop. But I was already prepared for this. Initiate. Bam. I stomped my right foot down to stop myself falling over from my momentum while, at the same time, tried to extricate myself by jumping up with the force of the stomp. The concrete cracked, but the spear held firm, nailing me down, as if someone was continually exerting force stabbing it downwards. Clive. Next, I tried to back away from the spear. It grew out of me, so I should be able to just leave it behind if I couldn't dislodge it, right? Wrong. I couldn't move my knee back to where the rest of the spear should be. It wasn't there, but it felt like it was. Corbring initiate Clive, he repeated. You can just call me Clive. That wasn't nice of you to leave while I'm introducing myself. I could hear his footsteps coming nearer. I turned as best as I could from a half-lunging position because of the stupid spear growing out of my knee. I held up my hands in surrender while shrugging my shoulders as if to say, okay, you caught me, it was just a joke. Internally, however, I was in full crisis mode. Part of my brain was focused on thinking of what to do, as the rest of my gray matter came up with colorful swear words to berate my stupid ass. I still wasn't dead, which meant my gamble paid off. I knew he was daring me to try to flee, as if it was a game, so I was sure he wouldn't outright kill me if he caught me, and there was a high chance of him catching me. Now, even if I knew his intentions, what was I supposed to do? When I heard Corbring, I had to try and escape even if success was just a tiny speck. Clive, you don't have to tell me it's an uncool name for a Corbring. I wrote my real nickname on the form. I didn't know it was official and I couldn't change it afterwards. I was right. You do know how my power works, he said. The spear was still behind his back but the bladed end was missing, it was jutting out of my knee. I put my hands on my hips and gave him a feisty look. Then I gestured to my knee. Apologies. He walked around to my front so I didn't need to awkwardly turn to look at him. I felt the spear inside my knee disappear as soon as he no longer had a view of the back of my leg, and I could stand properly. His spear simultaneously reformed in an instant. I had to satisfy my curiosity. You were able to figure out my ability in the short time you witnessed it earlier today. Awesome. He gave me a thumbs up. Okay, I'm still alive. I was right, he had no intentions of killing me. Was he going to capture me and bring me to the hive? Besides exterminating Adumbrae, I had no idea what else Corbrings did. Were they going to experiment on me? Keep calm, Errand. Sorry for that. He bent down to examine my knee. It doesn't appear to inconvenience you, so no need to fret. It will be completely healed soon. He was within striking distance. Should I attack? Flapping noises from above made both of us look up. I considered to try escaping again, but I quashed that thought. I might anger him. A seagull descended from the dark sky, a common enough bird in California especially for cities along the coast like La Esperanza, even if a bit rarer this far in the center of the city. The white bird landed on top of the water tank. It had something in its mouth which I couldn't make out in this light. Food? Cheese puffs or something. I wasn't doing anything, Clive said, standing back up. And control your voice, Pan. The police are just over there, they might hear you. Good, so they can arrest you for unwelcome sexual advances, Pan, the seagull said. Were you ogling her legs? False accusations, he said in a fake offended tone. Such slander I've never encountered in my years as a beacon of morality. I may be your junior, but let me give you a bit of advice on us girls. She may look really hot, but don't forget she's a monster. Do you mean to say women are monsters? I forgot where I was going with that thought. Let me get back to you on that. It's hard to control this seagull's mind and body while talking. Or are you saying only the hot ones are monsters? Maybe if hot women are monsters, then I'm a monster for sure. Both of them laughed. The seagull's laugh was especially comical, and it would have elicited a genuine chuckle from me if this was any other situation. And these two were so weird. They were so far removed from my expectations of what a Corbring should be, a heroic warrior that regularly fought malevolent interdimensional beings. But these ones? I didn't know what to make of them. However, with two of them here now, my chances of escape lessened. Seriously though, Clive, she's not human. She ate the creature you were trying to kill earlier. I know. You repeated it several times like you don't think that I'm listening to you. Most of the time you aren't. The seagull hopped down from the water tank, glided over me, then landed on Clive's head. With a closer look, I noticed something peeking from behind the gull, lodged in between its wings. A creature of some sort. The bird pecked at Clive's head with the cheese puff still in its mouth, dusting his black hair with yellow crumbs. Were you attacking her? She seems to know about my ability. I found it interesting. So, you tested your powers on her, the seagull said. Or was it the creature on its back speaking? The bird was munching on the cheese puffs. Are we even allowed to do this? Probably not. Who's to say? You. Because you're like the senior in our group. You're regrettably our leader with Corbring Delirium not here. In that case, I don't know what to say. Pan made gagging noises, perhaps to show her frustration, before making the seagull turn its head to me. Hello, Miss Monster, she said. Sorry for Clive attacking you. Attacking her? You make it sound like I'm a bad guy. Sometimes I think you are, retorted the seagull. Anyway, good evening Miss Monster. I go by the name, Trepanner. Trpanr, some people make a mistake in its spelling. Only Clive calls me Pan because he sucks, and I can't do anything about it. Don't call me Pan. I will hate you. Even Boss Delirium calls me Trepanner. I bowed my head a bit as greeting. The new Corbring wasn't hostile to me, best to keep it that way. She also didn't know my name, but she certainly had seen the video Reginus posted. I'm a new Corbring initiate, Trepanner continued, in contrast to Clive here who's been stuck as a CI since the start of written history. By my own choice, Clive clarified. A stupid choice that's affecting me. Everyone knows you intentionally reject faceting. Such a waste. Your Corquip is so awesome, imagine if you meld with it. I want to make it clear to our friend here that I'm not a delinquent initiate. Or imagine if your Corquip becomes core-bound to you and you receive a different core from the mother core. Pan, there's no reason to be jealous of my Corquip. Yours is very versatile and useful in various situations. But it's a support type. I thought I was already done with being support personnel. What's worse is I got assigned to your team to support you, and you don't even help me with developing my powers. I thought I made it clear during orientation that our team is very independent. You do your own thing. It's the real world out there. Doing my own thing. Real world? Trepanner said, almost shrieking in an inhuman pitch. Like you got a part-time job at Quality Mart? Don't tell me it's your cover. I'm going to be candid, the fried chicken there is awesome. I just wanted easy access to it. He felt the top of his head where Trepanner was perched and touched her feet. What a peculiar pair of feet. Seagulls don't have clawed feet like other birds. Gulls have webbed feet, but they do have small claws. Never mind all that. It's time we get going, we're not even supposed to be here. True, the manager might be wondering where I am. That's not what I'm talking about. Are you done here? What did you want to do with her anyway? I merely wanted to talk to her. But she won't respond. I guess she can't talk in that form, Trepanner mused. What do you mean? Didn't you see the video? That's not a mask on her face. Those are real teeth, that's her actual mouth. There was a moment of silence and Trepanner made the gagging noise again and pecked at Clive's head. You didn't watch it. I was on duty at the convenience store, we can't watch videos. Ask her to turn back to her human form so you can talk to her. I almost took a step back when I realized she knew this wasn't my original body. How could she have known that? That wasn't in the Reginus video. She might have spotted me transforming, which would explain why Clive came here. Was she patrolling this place or did she follow me since I climbed out of the subway emergency exit? In any case, I didn't have a way to wiggle out of this. What to do? Should I just transform back? Human form? Clive said. What do you mean? Clive suddenly grabbed the seagull on his head, including the creature hitching a ride on it, and squeezed hard. Don't kill the bird. Trepanner managed to say. He threw the gull in the air, but it fell to the ground, its wings apparently broken. She has a human form, he asked. All this time he kept his eyes on me. Yes, Trepanner croaked. I told you about it when I called. With the seagull splayed on the ground, I finally had a good view of the creature on its back. It had the form of a human fetus in its early stages, but with 6 tiny hands instead of just 2. It was inexplicably able to cling on to the seagull's feathery back. Its skin reflected the bright moonlight, however, it had a cloudy sheen as if it was sculpted out of white quartz. Tiny gems and gold accents adorned its body, like if someone made a fetus-themed amulet jewelry. I don't know why anyone would make such a thing. Growing out of this creature was a scorpion-like tail which pierced the back of the head of the seagull. I guess this was supposed to be some sort of umbilical cord. So, this was Trepanner. Or rather her cork-whip which she was controlling remotely. You did? Clive said, scratching his chin. Then I wasn't listening. He checked his watch and flicked his eyes back to me and grinned. He continued talking to Trepanner. This is the time shops close in South Clover Heights and many people pass by the convenience store to buy something to eat, so I was busy. Tell her to change to her human form so you can talk or whatever you want to do. The seagull tried to limply stand but couldn't. It weakly flapped its broken wings. Why me? You tell her. Phew, coercive capabilities, what a term. You're just picking a fight with me at this point. The fetus creature's tail glowed blue, pumping something into the head of the seagull. Dozens of small white wires burst from the hands of the creature and stabbed the seagull's body. Humph, you didn't need to do this to the poor bird. The gull began to contort for a couple of seconds and then it was fine again, plodding about while checking its wings. The white wires receded back into the fetus and its tail stopped glowing blue. Clive glared at the bird with unemotional eyes, then back to me. You can heal it. No need to fret. I held up my hand to get their attention. Then I felt for the spot where my monster snout connected to flesh somewhere beneath my chin and pulled, taking off my Blanchette face. I bowed my head, turning away to the left so they wouldn't see my real face. As I felt the power of my transformation drain from me, returning to my original body, I quickly pulled up my face mask to cover my nose and mouth. I faced them, my heart began beating faster. Surprisingly, I did feel a tinge of anxiety. This was easily the most dangerous situation I've been in. Yes, my normal body had super strength and healing abilities too, but I might as well be a weak seagull if Clive wanted to kill me. My senses told me his little demonstration of crushing the bird was more for me than as a result of being annoyed at his teammate. I didn't think this guy could even get annoyed. I would have been more assured if I stayed with my Blanchette body, although I still wouldn't be able to do anything against Clive's ability. But it wasn't only anxiety I felt. Extreme excitement at the thrill of a life and death gamble soon pushed away any emotion of concern inside me. I had to take the initiative in this situation if I was going to bullshit my way out of this, which I couldn't do if I couldn't speak. And I'd rather not wait for Clive to decide he was going to force me to transform back. Trepanner was really insistent on making me turn to my human form, and I felt the right move was to transform on my own to show strength and confidence. "Hello," I said to them in a jovial tone, waving my hand in a wide arc, my voice, slightly muffled by the cloth mask I wore. Talk about lucky I brought a mask along. My name is Blanchette. Not my real name. If you don't mind, I'd prefer not giving my real one. I was already thinking of what to do next if they forced me to reveal my identity, which wouldn't really matter, I suppose, if their goal was to capture me. Should I tell them that I think my dad is working for the Hive? Would they even know him? I wasn't even sure if he was still alive. Clive whistled. You do have a human form, imagine that. That's what I've been telling you. Trepanner flapped her wings, or rather controlled the seagull to fly on my head and sat on top of my hoodie. I tried to stand as still as possible so I wouldn't disturb her. Is this a threat? Imagine this, she exclaimed. Working with this guy. He just casually squishes me. That's not you, just a bird and your corquip which no one, not even a high overseer, can destroy. Why fret? This is why I don't show up in our meetings. Fair, Clive said with a shrug. I blinked. They didn't care about me. A monster that they knew Anti-Adumbrae just transformed into a human in front of them, and these two core-brains still continued with their nonsensical banter. Was this how the protectors of humanity were? I actually like them. Excuse me, I said. Me, a wide-eyed newbie, Trepanner said, excited to learn about the world and do my part in saving it, and then I got assigned to be with this guy. Excuse me, Trepanner. I said. She stopped with her rant. How did you know I could transform? I figured that I should be relaxed with them. Just chat normally like they couldn't kill me if they wanted to. I want to know as well, Clive said. It wasn't in the video, I think. You didn't even watch the damn video. Trepanner said, making that gagging sound again. Did you see me transform? I asked, trying to sound my utmost friendliest. Okay, calm down, Trepanner. She gargled then sighed. Sorry, Miss Monster, Blanchette. I just get riled up when he's around. I have plenty of seagulls patrolling the city. Where was that again? I think that was called the Bryce area. The part where the train crosses the elevated railway over the artificial river. That tourist spot at daytime. I had a seagull perched on top of the arch of the bridge. That's where I saw you. I relaxed upon hearing her explanation. Burse Bridge was far from my condominium, she wouldn't know where I came from. That was assuming she wasn't lying. But I returned to my human body while I was inside the subway. How were you able to follow me afterwards? I did lose you. When the train left Clover Station, you weren't on top of it anymore. So, I called my gull squad and started following suspicious people. Like me, who used the emergency exit of the subway. I didn't see you come out of any exit. I don't even know where that is. I just spotted you lurking suspiciously in the dark, and there were no stores or anything where you came from. I was surprised when you transformed into the woman with the red hood I saw in the video. Lucky guess. I was about to stop following you. Why would I do that? He asked. A rhetorical question. Even if it was, I should answer to gain control, even if a tiny bit. How should I go about this? I wasn't dumb enough to answer, because I'm an Adumbrae. Got it. I swallowed before saying, I thought you might be angry with me because I killed your target. You wanted to kill that Adumbrae, right? The one that looks like a snake at Serenade Bazaar. Adumbrae? That wasn't an Adumbrae, Clive said. Let's pursue this thread. Oh, I thought it was. Nodding up a bit as if to look at Trepanner on my head. And she did join in the conversation. It wasn't an Adumbrae, or we would have felt it. The Mother Core didn't tell us, through our core quips, to kill that creature. Clive shouldn't have done anything. She stomped on my head with the seagull's webbed feet, showing her frustration. He's getting us in trouble. Aren't you big on saving people, he said. Which is odd that you're the one who acted. I didn't even know what was happening because I was on the beach capturing more seagulls at that time. Before they could fight again and derail the conversation, I stepped in. Wait. So, you weren't supposed to attack that creature? It was fine then that I stepped in and finished it off. I was twisting the narrative here a bit. I didn't exactly step in to help, I destroyed the news camera so he couldn't finish my snake mutant buddy. But Clive seemed to be absent-minded with everything that he might not notice it. I wanted to help save the people too. I insisted. Yes, you helped, Clive said. He snapped his fingers and pointed at me. And that's why I wanted to talk to you. To thank you. That's all. Trepanner said. I thought it was something important. It is important, my dear Pan. Not only to thank her for killing the creature and stopping the number of casualties from rising. Admirable, of course. But I'm also thanking her for helping in our mission. If I continued attacking that snake-like creature through the TV, our target would have noticed our presence in the city, or at least realized that the attention of the hive is turned here. I see, replied Trepanner. You're thanking her because she saved your butt from getting kicked by Boss Delirium for endangering our mission? Precisely. He dug into his pocket, pulled out a few strips of paper, and offered them to me. Here, Blanchette. I hesitantly accepted them. Thanks. What are these? Discount coupons from Quality Mart. That's all we have left at the store. That's your way of thanking her? Trepanner said, her voice rising in pitch, dangerously close to shrieking again. There might be a couple of free upgrades on a fried chicken meal there. Those are the coupons with the most value. I'll keep that in mind. I still couldn't wrap my head around the behavior of these two, but I went with the flow. Why did you spear her if you just wanted to thank her? Trepanner said. That is an entirely different matter. You see, she smashed the TV camera that was broadcasting a live feed of the snake creature, stopping me from killing it, Clive explained. He looked straight into my eyes. The muscles of my lower body tensed, as if ready to run even if that was the last thing I was going to attempt. I confirmed that it was no accident, that she actually knew what she was doing, intentionally stopping my powers. Sorry, I said. What should I say here? Disclaim knowledge. Tell a lie that I thought he was also a dangerous Adumbrae. To be honest, I did that so you wouldn't attack me too when I went after the snake creature. You wanted to be the one to kill it? To eat it? Okay then. That's the other matter I wanted to clear up. He bowed in the same way he did earlier, with a leg swept back and an arm stretched to the side. Once again, I, Corbring Initiate Clive, extend my humblest gratitude to Miss Blanchette. He straightened and looked me in the eye. I am deeply appreciative of people who unknowingly help me. Thank you. Wait, welcome, I guess, I said. I looked at the coupons. Yes, you're welcome. Glad to be of help. And thanks for the coupons. Don't be afraid to use those. I'm not going to trace you with them. I'm a man of my word, he said. And I guarantee the fried chicken of Quality Mart are to die for, he added with a wink. Just imagine I made the appropriate rebuttal here, Trepanner said. I don't want to ruin this wonderful moment with hostility. One more thing. Clive took out his cell phone, then showed me a picture on it. It was a photo of a man looking straight at the camera with hazel eyes. Have you seen this man? He had a well-kept full beard with strands of gray mixed in with the deep brown hair, a nasty scar across his left cheek, and deep crow's feet at the sides of his eyes. I don't think so, I said. Who was this? Their target? Was this one of the two MS? I didn't know what they looked like. Fair enough, he said. If ever you see him, do keep in mind to stay away. I'll remember that. Thanks for the heads up. Goodbye then. Clive jumped off the building before I could utter a response and was gone. Ha! That's it? I was still alive. I couldn't believe that. I almost blurted out, "You weren't going to kill me," but I kept my mouth shut because Trepanner was still on my head. After several seconds, she was still there, unmoving. Would she be the one to finish me off? That fetus thing might climb down and stab me with its tail. Should I grab her? And then throw her away or something? "You handled that well, Blanchette," Trepanner said. She was still talking with that silly voice, but her tone changed into a flat and serious one. "I'm alive, so I think I did," giving her a straight answer rather than playing dumb. "You may be wondering why you are still alive. Kind of, yes. I don't truly know. The Mother Core is not telling us to kill you. You're also not a target for execution by the Hive. Like the man in the picture that Clive showed me?" "Yup." She paused, as if expecting me to ask who that man was. But I kept my mouth shut. The less I knew about the business of these people, the better. "Those are basically the two groups that we're allowed to kill," Trepanner continued. "And to some extent, killing for self-defense, but that's a different thing. Good thing I'm not in those groups." "You're not," she agreed. "But that's only when it comes to our team. I've been with other teams as support personnel for a few years before I was selected by the Mother Core, and the others will probably have a different perspective on what to do with you. Avoid other core brings in the future." "Got it." Why was she still not going away if she already said she didn't want to kill me? I held the coupons up to her. "These discount coupons, they were not really meant for me, am I right?" "Correct. Clive likes to keep those. And there's a chance he would have killed me if you weren't here." "Yes, that's why I was annoying him. No need to thank me, because I have to apologize for Clive's behavior. He's pretty inconsiderate sometimes." I was seething. "You led him to me." But all I said out loud was, "It's fine." What else could I say? The tone of her apology was unsettling, as if she was saying sorry in behalf of someone who just spilled tea on me or something. Following Clive's example, "I also want to thank you for entertaining me. I was nearly going crazy with practicing my power on these birds." "You're probably thinking mind control." "It's not." I felt the weight on my head disappear as she took off. "I also have something good to tease Clive with. He practically admitted he wanted to save people. This is going to be fun." She cackled mischievously as she flapped her wings and rose higher and higher in the air. "In sum, we're even. Have a good night, Blanchette. I doubt we'll meet each other again." "Good night," I said, waving goodbye. She became smaller and smaller as she flew further away. Other birds joined her, probably ones she also controlled, and they eventually disappeared as specks in the sky. I continued waving at her, then slowly balled my open hand into a fist. What was that about being even? She didn't even want anything from me. She was just bored and wanted to dick around. Yet, she had the gall to expect me to be appreciative that she saved me from Clive. I wouldn't have minded it if she wanted to kill me because she was a Corebring and I was an Adumbrae. And what was that about the Mother Core telling them which ones to kill? Why not me? Perhaps, like me, the Corebrings weren't right in the head either. What a weird night. I stared at the slice of pizza on the rotating plate inside the microwave. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beep beep beep. I took it out and brought it to the table by the sofa where my milk tea waited. It was a bottled one I bought from the vending machine. I didn't have any money when I went out, so I had to go back up, get my wallet, then go back down again to the ground floor. A hassle, but I didn't have anything with tons of sugar in my room. I stared at the black screen of my TV until the smell of the pizza brought me back to reality. I hurriedly ate the crust, set it back on its plate, and took a long drink from the bottle of milk tea, downing nearly half of it in one go. I went back to looking at the TV in a daze. Eventually, I noticed my reflection on the empty screen. The sides of my lips slowly curled up. I breathed heavily, my shoulders shuddering. I began tapping on the floor with my right foot. Unable to control it any longer, the giggles started. I bobbed my head in a valiant attempt to stave off laughter. My efforts to stop laughing resulted in stupid snorting, which only made it funnier. I parted my mouth. He ha ha ha, I was rocking back and forth on the sofa. Ha 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 ha. My reflection on the TV screen looked like a total idiot. I was stamping my feet on the floor while maniacally laughing. Ha 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 ha. I accidentally kicked the table, flipping it over. It nearly hit the TV. The plate broke when it crashed on the floor. Ha 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 geez. That made me stop. I wiped the tears from my eyes as I looked down at the mess I made. The pizza fell face down on the floor. I guess pizzas didn't have faces, so topping side down, splattering sauce and cheese on the tiles, mixing with the broken pieces of the plate. Fortunately, I had drunk enough of the milk tea that only a small amount was spilled, even if it rolled on the floor without its cap on. I still didn't move, just staring at the floor, chuckling once in a while. An unsettling feeling laughing to this extent. I felt like it was another person laughing and I was just observing. It was all so stupid and funny, but the emotion barely penetrated my heart. Poetic. I knew fate was an imaginary concept. Destiny meaningless. We didn't have actual preordained roles in life, no deity directing our path, no author writing our actions, no proverbial thread of a set future. People just found the idea of a set future comforting. But what the hell? What is all of this shit happening to me? Not just meeting the core brings. All of this. This couldn't be all of Spooky Erin's schemes. How much of her power could affect what was happening in this world? Could she affect reality? My reality? I doubted it. Spooky Erin was likely swimming through different planes of existence my feeble mind couldn't comprehend, but I hadn't seen any indication that she influenced my real world. I wouldn't even have met her if Myra hadn't attacked and nearly killed me at Sanders Mall, and Myra wouldn't have attacked me if I wasn't there at the cafeteria when Kelsey threw herself outside the window, and I wouldn't have been in the cafeteria at that time of the day if I bent to societal norms and studied in the library like all the other 1L students. Why me, was the question people tended to ask when they felt the world was piling everything on them. And I also ask that question now, why me? World, I yelled at the light on the ceiling, knowing full well I was addressing no one. If you're going to bother me to this extent, you should have made sure to kill me before I start bothering everyone back. Knock, knock, knock. I clamped my mouth shut. The knocking continued. Neighbors annoyed at my screaming. I was a bit too noisy and it seemed the walls weren't thick enough. Sorry. I loudly said. No response. That was embarrassing, or the approximation of that emotion I could feel. Ha. So much for a bothering speech. I looked once again at the mess I made, deciding I should clean up first before going to sleep. Knock, knock, knock. Was I supposed to be expecting anyone? There were no messages on my phone. Even if it was Dean coming over for a surprise visit, she wouldn't be able to go up without a resident key card unless she snuck into the stairwell or something. And it was already 1:45. I never had visitors this late or this early. I stood up and walked to the door to see who it was. The knocking was steady and evenly spaced out, almost rhythmic, that it made me wonder if someone was playing a prank on me. Could it be a robber? I heard rumors of someone getting robbed when I first moved in this building, which was why they beefed up security. I had been away from my room for a couple of weeks, maybe robbers were scouting out rooms with no people. But my lights were on, they'd know someone was inside. A few feet from the door, I suddenly darted to the side and crouched low. What if these were enemies? Did the two MS finally know about me and what I did to their operations, some way, somehow? I didn't want to be in their line of fire if they decided to pump my room with bullets. If I was going to kill someone who I suspected was an Adumbrae, I'd riddle the upper half of the door with gunfire when they came to answer it. But why would they knock in a weird way? The knocking stopped. Only the ticking of my pink wall clock could be heard. I crawled from my hiding space to check. The shadow beneath the door shuffled away. I peeled my ears to try to discern how many people were outside, but I couldn't clearly hear. It seemed to be just one person who was walking away. Should I go and see who it was? Even if there was no more knocking, I returned to the side of the room and didn't move from my position. I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, playing random games on my phone. I was thinking whether to turn the lights off, but maybe people were still outside and then they'd know for sure I was awake. I'd rather they assume I was asleep and attack me now that I was aware of them. But absolutely nothing happened. It was 1:01 a.m. when I stood up, switched off my lights, and went to bed. Bummer. The time I was being super careful, it turned out to be nothing. Run. Faster. Faster. I picked up speed as I neared the left end of Serenade Bazaar's transparent rooftop. I forced myself not to look down or my legs might turn to jelly. I kept my focus on the roof of the next building. Jump. I soared over the gap between the two structures. It was about a couple of car lengths, but the neighboring building was lower than Serenade Bazaar and I gained a lot of speed before jumping. I was grinning with my wolf snout, savoring the excitement, the rush, the thrill of getting caught. I had the weird urge to start panting as I ran. Faster. As fast as I could until my lungs burned, my muscles got sore, my body taking the toll of my superhuman speed, running and jumping over the buildings. And then my regeneration kicked in so I could push my body to the limit all over again. The shadow of the police helicopter covered me. More sounds of rotors joined in, drones were following me too. Building after building, and soon I was about to reach the end of the block. A gap ahead. A busy street, 2 lanes wide. Should I stop now and find a way down? No. I should press on. My destination was further along, somewhere to lose myself in the crowds. Could I make this jump? I could. I believe I can fly. I arched across the air, several stories above the jam-packed traffic. The building across was coming nearer and nearer, its wall not looking very inviting. There was no way I was going to reach its roof. I braced myself for impact. Bam! I hit the face of the building. I slammed my claws into wall as my body was about to bounce off, grabbing on for dear life. My brain was rattled, I was seeing double, triple, everything was shaking, I probably broke a couple of bones and injured some of my innards, I was even hearing a knocking sound. I closed my eyes to stop the world around me from swirling. Focus. Climb. Climb up and continue running on the rooftops. The drones might try to shoot me down, I could hear them whizzing closer. I hoped the police would exercise restraint for fear of hitting the people inside the building, but anything goes when trying to stop an Adumbrae. Sirens from police cars were getting louder, converging on my location. Knock, knock, knock. Knocking? What? I opened my eyes and found that my claws weren't latched onto the side of the building. And my claws were missing. I had my hands, my normal hands. When did I transform back? I was falling. I sat straight up so fast my brain almost got left behind. Can't see shit. I felt around me. Blankets, a soft mattress, pillows, I was in bed. I blinked until my eyes adjusted to the light, or lack of it. It was still dark except for a thin line of moonlight squeezing itself through the small space between my 2 heavy curtains covering the wall windows of my bedroom. Just a dream. I couldn't recall the last time I dreamt so vividly. It was about my time escaping from Serenade Bazaar. That wasn't even a nightmare because that was a very cool memory. Too bad something woke me up. Was it knocking? I couldn't recall. I couldn't even recall what my dream was. Something about jumping. I reached for my phone on my bedside table to check the time. I already threw my smashed alarm clock in the bin. Weird. I was trying to get my phone, but my hand couldn't seem to reach it, just slowly inching towards it. After several seconds watching the impossible scene, I was finally able to grab my phone. 1:01 a.m. There was something wrong here. What time did I fall asleep again? Then it clicked. I was still in a dream. I'd experienced several instances of a dream within a dream when I was a kid, and maybe a couple of times when I was in high school, but none recently. Maybe I was just tired as hell now. Knock, knock, knock. My heart seized. I recognized that sound. As soon as I heard it, my hand went up to my face while summoning my mask before even turning to see who it was. It wasn't the same knock I heard when I was awake. That wasn't the sound of the door to my unit. That was the sound of the door of my bedroom. The light in my room flicked on. "You," I said. I wanted to do the gagging and gurgling sound Trepanner loved to make because it seemed apt with the situation. Spooky Errand had the knuckle of her index finger against my open bedroom door. "Knock, knock, knock," she said with each rap on the polished wood. "Are you awake? Is that a trick question?" "No. Sounds like one. Am I still asleep?" "I was asking you, now you're asking me." "Mayo. Mio mew 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 mew," I interrupted. Her eyes widened with surprise. "Just messing with you." I stuck my tongue out to her. "I'm allowed to do that, right?" I hastily added, hoping she wouldn't get angry. She laughed and walked to the side of my bed. "Of course, you are," she said as she jumped on my bed and crawled to me. "Hey. You know I don't. You don't like anyone else climbing on your bed." "I know. But this doesn't count because you and I are the same." She grabbed the lower half of my face before I could speak and forced my mouth shut. She flashed me a knowing smile and whispered to my ear, "Mayumayumia," her breath almost ticklish, then she released me. "Actually, I was going to say I don't want your boots on my bed." "Really now? If I take off my boots, it's going to be fine with you?" I rolled my eyes at her. "I was wondering when you'd show up," I said, massaging my cheeks and chin, my hand having reached my face at last. "Why is that?" "There's so much that happened today, I was expecting you to be the icing on the cake." My phone was in my other hand. It still said 1:01 a.m. even though I was sure at least a couple of minutes should have already passed. "I guess this is already the next day. I see that you've been pretty busy." "Very. You've even made sufficient payment of the delivery fee." I raised a brow. Did she mean the heads inside my snake mutant buddy? I had no idea what those were, some sick experiment of the 2MS, but it seemed I made the right choice eating them as they had something in them that Spooky Errand was looking for. "Does that mean I can now use that face you showed me?" "Yes, but only for a short period of time. A few hours of your time with the delivery fee you paid." "Oh," I said, slightly disappointed. "I was looking forward to playing with that one. Is it different from the first face you gave me?" "Lent. Lent? I lent you that face. You borrowed it. The one you're calling Blanchette?" "Right. Anyway, for this second face you see, it's extremely difficult for me to send more power across dimensions." I nodded as it somehow made sense to me, recalling the cocoon in the arena beneath Eve and the 2-bit agents mentioning that it was bridging or something into our dimension by eating the heads. "So, I could only use it each time I'm able to gather enough to pay the fee." "Bright girl." She smiled at me and our eyes met. I didn't break eye contact, drawn in by her demonic pupils. Her gauntlet hand reached for my face, a single golden metal claw parted my hair and tucked it behind my right ear. Then she trailed the tip of her claw by the side of my face, down to my throat, and up again, following my jawline to my chin. A shiver crawled down my spine. I hated being touched, but I didn't say anything because I knew what her response would be. She opened her hand, showing me the huge crystal on her palm. Now that I saw it up close, I realized it wasn't one crystal, there were 7 of them, the 6 arranged in a circle around a central crystal. "You're going to need this," Spooky Erin said as the golden liquid from her gauntlet turned silver and formed into the next face I was going to use. "Do you want to try it on now?" The new face floated between Spooky Erin and me. It was whitish silver in color, very shiny like silver chrome or something. Its cheek reflected my face clearly as if it was a mirror. It had the appearance of the face of a mannequin, the well-crafted ones with beautiful designs in the high-end department stores, not those crap ones you'd find in flea markets. Curiously, it had no eye holes, or eyes for that matter. But then again, mannequin heads didn't have eye holes either, I was just expecting it to look more like a mask. Deep grooves ran from the sides of its lips straight down to the bottom of its jaw, similar to a ventriloquist dummy whose mouth could move. It would be good if I could talk while transformed. The last oddity on it was the symbol on the middle of its forehead. It appeared to be a representation of an eye crudely painted on the chrome surface, looking really out of place. The lines were uneven and shaky, the crimson paint was cracked and peeling in places. A gold line appeared in the middle of the eye symbol, bisecting it. Then it opened, revealing an actual eye with a mesmerizing golden pupil. "Don't get weirded out now, this is going to be your new face." Spooky Erin thrust it towards me. I tried to move back, and that slow-motion dream thingy kicked in. "Wait. You're telling me to wear it now?" "Yes, Isiri. Come here and let me put it on you. Like when I wake up, I'll be transformed." "You should be. You need it. Before that," I said, raising my voice. She stopped trying to put it on me, tilting her head from side to side questioningly like a cute puppy would. I said, "Can you tell me about it first? Its powers, the conditions for using it, its weaknesses and stuff." Spooky Erin's smile fell then turned to a frown. Oops. I recalled she thought I was a total idiot when I couldn't exactly figure out the power of the Blanchette face. And since we were the same, as she often repeated, that would imply she was an idiot too. Wait. A clue. Just give me a clue, a hint, whatever." "A clue? Yeah. Like a game. Isn't a game fun?" She pouted while looking at the ceiling, considering my proposal. "A clue? Honestly, you wouldn't need one. This is a pretty straightforward face. Just point your finger at the appropriate target." "Point my finger? Or fingers?" "Now, when I say straightforward, I mean you'll understand what's going on immediately because you're such a bright girl." She poked my cheek with a claw. It hurt a bit. But all the nitty-gritty stuff you could do with it and can't do with it, that may be a bit confusing. Help me out here then. It wouldn't be fun if I make a huge dumb mistake. You'll figure it by testing it. It's going to be enjoyable when you test out stuff, so I won't spoil it for you." As I expected, she wouldn't give me a straight answer. "Point my finger." That was better than nothing. "Thanks for the clue," I said. "But don't get angry if I do something stupid, okay?" "Fine, I'll give you something more. This one is also going to be pretty obvious, so it wouldn't really spoil things, but it's very important. Take care of your body." I guess that's both obvious and important. I made sure to make a mental note of that advice because it might have some hidden meaning knowing her. "Thanks. I'll make sure it's going to be entertaining when I eventually use it. Now. Now. Now." I stared at Spooky Erin's grinning face while chewing my tongue. She did mention that if I wore it now, I'll wake up transformed. I thought she was just excited for me to try it out, and maybe make fun of me. However, if that was her intent, why did she say, "You need it," to me? I groaned. There's some shit waiting for me when I wake up, isn't there? Maybe. She said playfully, her tone indicating that there weren't only some, but rather lots of shit in the waking world. Ugh, my day still isn't over and it's already the next day. Here, I'm going to put it on you now. I didn't resist. How sweet, I said sarcastically. Oh. One last thing. You said I'll be able to use this only for a few hours. How long is that exactly? I'm not sure, give or take 3 hours of your time, good luck. Tap, tap, tap. Someone knocking again. I opened my eyes and I immediately knew that I had transformed. I was standing in front of my bedroom window. The curtains were drawn, the lights turned off. It was absolute darkness. Yet, I could see everything clearly. The color of my curtain, the minute patterns I hadn't noticed before, and even its individual threads. It wasn't that greenish thingy that night vision has. I didn't know what that actually looked like. I only saw night vision as depicted on TV, but it was similar to how movies simulated total darkness, like there was a ton of stage lights around me. I could weirdly tell it was absolute darkness, but I could see everything. My brain hurt trying to understand this. Tap tap. It wasn't the door this time. Something was tapping on my window. Nothing good came out of scenes like these in horror movies. Even more worrying was the fact that I was on the 22nd floor. My next enemy? Someone or something with flying powers? Was this the reason Spooky Errand wanted me to transform? The tapping continued, there was scratching and crunching sounds too. My window started to creak like it was getting pushed in. It didn't sound like someone was outside my window, it was as if something was growing and pressing against it. Time to test out my new powers. With one hand, I pulled the curtain aside and pointed at whatever was out there with all the fingers on my other hand. Nothing came out of my fingers. Huh. I slowly lowered my useless hand as I gazed at the spectacle outside my window. It took me a few seconds to understand what was happening. Charcoal-colored vines as thick, or even thicker than my body, covered my window, blocking any view of the outside. Not even a hint of the bright moonlight could get in. They were growing, slithering, coiling around each other. It brought back a disgusting memory of something I saw as a kid on the Animal Channel of a massive snake mating ball comprised of tons of snakes bonking each other. My voice had a metallic clang to it and sounded a bit fake, akin to a voice generator. Which was probably apt, seeing as I turned into something robotic. My hands had the same shade of silver as the face Spooky Errand gave me. The joints on my fingers, wrists and arms were colored black, and were probably like a ball socket or ball hinge, whatever the right term was, allowing me movement that wasn't possible for normal human anatomy. Whoa, this is neat, I said as I rotated my arms the wrong way. I could even bend my fingers and touch the back of my hand. A cool trick, but I wasn't sure if that could help in a fight. But what do I do with this? I said to no one in particular, just enjoying my weird voice, referring to the vines outside my window. This must be the power of an Adumbrae. Was the entire building covered with vines? It wasn't trying to enter my room, so I guess that wasn't an immediate concern for now. I turned around to go out of my bedroom. My body. Am I dead? I knelt at the side of my bed and touched my face. In my vision, there was a gray tinge outlining my body. I hoped it didn't mean I was deceased. I couldn't check if my body was cold because I didn't have human skin to feel temperature with. My chest wasn't moving. I put my ear over my nose and mouth, but I couldn't hear any breathing. I couldn't feel even a hint of air on my cheek. Could I even feel that? I lightly touched my cheek and confirmed the answer was no. You don't have skin, remember? Mirror. Where's a small mirror? I just took my cell phone on my bedside table and held it under my nose. No fog on the screen. Next, a flashlight. I was about to open my drawer when I remembered I was already holding my phone. I pressed the screen for the fingerprint recognition. My phone lit up but didn't unlock. You have no fingerprints, idiot. I rummaged through my drawer and got a small flashlight. I pried open my eyelids and shone the light on my eyeball. It wasn't moving. I was practically dead. Or perhaps it was more accurate to say my body was an empty shell. I couldn't be dead because I was still here in my metal body. This must be one of the conditions for using the new face Spooky Errand gave me. Rule number 7, don't do anything that would break the character of the face I have on. I didn't expect it to be this blatant. And how could I break the character of my face when I was in a different body? Was my body still alright? I could still return to it, right? I had to check. I placed my fingers beneath my jawline, visualizing where the end of the face would be. This was how I took off the Blanchette face, and I assumed it would work this way for this face too. I was about to remove my current face when Spooky Erin's words came back to me. She said I had to pay the fee each time this power was lent to me. It likely meant that if I removed the face now, I couldn't summon it again without consuming the brains of Adumbrae and mutants. I just had to trust Spooky Erin. That my body was fine. So, this was what she meant, that I should take care of my body. She was right, this was pretty obvious, and important. And I could already see this was going to be a hassle. At least I could see my body now, compared to when I was transforming into Blanchette, where my body just poofs to another freaking dimension. Let's reorient myself first. Okay. I was up against someone powerful enough to wrap the whole condominium with these vines that had the color of cheese that dripped to the bottom of the oven while baking pizza and got burnt. I was only assuming it was the entire building. I had to check other floors to confirm this. But even if it was just my floor covered with these vines, it was still a wide area. And it wouldn't make sense to just cover my floor if the purpose was to isolate and trap me, because I could just go down to the next floor. I had powers I had yet to discover, plus I also had to take care of my body. This wasn't looking good. With my work cut out for me, I should start with my first task, bringing my body with me. I obviously couldn't stay here. At first, I considered leaving my body in my room, maybe hiding it under my bed or in the closet, and returning for it after I've killed the enemy. But my goal was only to survive and escape safely. No need to fight whoever was this Adumbrae with vine powers. Plus, anyone targeting me would search my room. It was the stupidest place to hide my most important possession. What a weird way to refer to my body, which was also my weakness. I also didn't know how long these vines would stay out the window. I rolled my body on the bed, wrapping it with my blanket like a sushi. Then I grabbed my body by the waist and threw it over my shoulder. "Oh my God," I blurted, as I staggered under the weight, nearly dropping to my knees. I gently lowered my human body to the floor, straining not to fall over. Wow, do I need to diet? While contemplating this added challenge, I dragged my body out of the bedroom and into the living room, holding it under the armpits, taking care of my neck and head. I then left the body on the floor and went to check what was outside my living room window. Remembering something, I went back to my human body and dragged it into the kitchen part of my unit and arranged it next to the fridge. I had one last test to do. I took my sharpest knife from the rack and unwrapped the blanket to find my human body's hand. Holding the knife against the skin, I gently tried to slice my palm. It didn't bleed. Good to know I was still tougher than a normal human. I slowly increased the force I used until my skin turned red. Then I sliced as hard as I could to make a wound. It was like slicing a tough old meat with a blunt paring knife. Bright red blood flowed from the cut and dribbled down to my white blanket, making red polka dot patterns on it. I anxiously observed the wound and sighed in relief, metaphorically, as I couldn't actually breathe when it quickly healed. It was a good safety net that my human body still retained its durability and regenerative abilities. I could bung it up a bit. Funny that I was referring to it as my human body when I wasn't human anymore. Should I begin my daunting task of carrying my body to the elevator? I didn't get tired at all. However, I sensed that I couldn't push my metal body too much or it would fall apart. It wasn't painful, but I could inexplicably feel the strain on my joints in a bizarre way when I dragged my human body out of my bedroom. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. Should I answer it now? What will happen if I die in this body? If I still had a human heart, it would have pounded in excitement at the prospect of another gamble. I already posited before that whenever I wore the Blanchette face I wasn't exactly transforming. My body was replaced with the Blanchette one, and my consciousness was transferred over. Although, I still called it transformation because it tangentially, sorta, kinda, loosely was depending on how you look at it. And I didn't have a better term to use. This new face proved my hypothesis since my actual human body was there, by the fridge. If this metal body got destroyed, my theory was that I would simply be returned to my original body. And maybe I would lose usage of that specific face as a consequence. Of course, I could be wrong and I'd permanently die if I got killed while in a different body, my consciousness dissipating into nothingness, my body left as a lifeless husk. But Spooky Errand wouldn't let me die this easily, right? I hope so. So, what's up with this weird knocking? I swear my purpose was not to just find someone to test my powers on. It is. He. I excitedly tried to peer through the peephole but something felt off with my head. I felt around the part of my face where my eyes should be and found smooth metal. I continued feeling up my face and found my eye singular in the middle of my forehead. Sure, that might as well be the case, I thought with a shrug. I carefully aligned my cyclopean eye with the peephole. Who is this guy? I couldn't see his face, only his curly brown hair, because he bowed his head down while continuing to knock in that evenly spaced way, almost like a metronome. I knew a few people with curly hair, but I was sure they weren't this guy. Should I open the door? There were no other people in the corridor besides him. My hand was about to clasp the door knob when I noticed the color outlining his figure. It was of a similar quality to the gray tinge enveloping my human body. His color, however, was a sickly green. Like green turning halfway into grayish muddy color. What could this mean? I was even more convinced I should use this guy as a guinea pig. As I focused on him through the peephole, I spotted a splash of red color drifting in his head. The longer I looked, the clearer the red form became. It had the shape of a worm or probably closer to a tadpole but was about as large as my thumb. I didn't have X-ray vision that I was sure of but I could see something was in his head that shouldn't be there. This red tadpole thing was swimming inside him. I spotted another one, and yet another. I wasn't sure if they were multiplying, but the way they moved, it was as if they were tunneling through his flesh and organs. Then the guy looked up straight into the peephole with his mouth open. Luckily, I wasn't actually breathing or I would have gasped. I surprised myself that I didn't jerk back upon seeing his face. Something was coming up from the back of his throat. Small tentacles, like clumps of spaghetti that achieved sentience, extended themselves and reached for the peephole. Their reddish outline told me they were connected to the tadpole thingies inside him. I slowly backed from the door. The knocking continued, but with added scratching sounds from the small tentacles. I pointed my fingers at the door. Power. I thought forcefully. Let's go power. Nothing happened. I tiptoed to the kitchen as fast as I could without making any noise. Weapons, I needed something to fight back with. I picked the biggest knife I could find and held it with my right hand in front of me. There was no point trying to hide because they were going to find me anyway. This was just a condo unit, it would take a few minutes to search every possible hiding spot here. If this zombie asshole barged in here, I had to make a last stand. No super strength, no powers, this was going to be ugly. Weirdly, I was remaining super calm as my situation steadily worsened. I was in my element. Life and death situations, fighting against monsters, I was at home here. This was my life now. Whatever was coming, bring it on. I slowly advanced back to the door, deciding I should distance myself from my human body in case there was a fight. But the knocking and scratching stopped. I wasn't sure if my hearing improved in this metal body, but I was certain I could hear the zombie guy walking away. Knock, knock, knock. This time, the zombie was knocking on the door of my neighbor. There were no people in that room as the couple who owned that unit were on a 2-month tour of Asia and they didn't rent it out before they left. I recalled them because they were very nice to me and regularly used to give me a couple slices of the apple pie they baked during weekends, which I sorely missed when they went abroad. Was the zombie guy just going to knock on each room? Good luck to whoever answered him. As for me, I had to figure out what to do next. Spooky Erin's parting words returned to me. Before wishing me good luck, she told me that, give or take 3 hours of your time, my power was going to run out. Spooky Erin certainly had a reason why she gave me this face instead of just telling me to use the Blanchette one. Which then meant the power of the Blanchette face wouldn't be enough or was unsuitable for this situation. In short, my escape is on a timer. I examined the fingers on my hands. In place of fingernails, there were symbols drawn on them with the same red paint as the one used for the eye on my forehead, a different one for each of my 10 fingers. 10 different effects. I suspected this was why Spooky Erin seemed to be excited at the prospect of me testing my different abilities. The next question would be how to activate them in the first place so I could test them. Looking closely, there were nearly invisible grooves on the tips, as if they were supposed to open. And I assumed my power was shooting something out of my fingers since Spooky Erin said I should just point my finger. Why was nothing happening then? I was missing something. Point my finger. At the appropriate target. I forgot about the second part of her clue. Not only did I need to find out what the colors meant and which I should target, I also needed a clear shot. Nothing came out when I pointed at the vines outside the building because they were not appropriate targets. Nothing also happened when I tried to shoot at the zombie guy in the corridor, even though he had both red and green colors, because my door was in the way. I should take this chance to test my powers on the zombie guy outside since he was alone. Then I was going to make sure the path was clear before dragging my body to the elevator. I'm going to get super mad if the elevators aren't working. But I should hide my human body first before going out of my room. A blood-curdling scream made me pause. Did someone finally let the zombie in? I should hurry if I wanted to join in on the action. It would take too much time and effort to try and carry my body back to my bedroom. Behind the sofa. I dropped my knife and pushed away my flipped table, glancing at the pizza and broken plate that I hadn't cleaned up. Then I positioned myself in front of my sofa. I bent down and pulled it with all my might. I hate this, I murmured, as I budged it a few inches away from the wall. How I missed my super strength. A couple more inches, I thought, as I could feel my joints nearly popping. I dragged my body from my fridge to the living room area of my unit. Then I put it on the seat of the sofa, and with monumental effort rolled it to the top of the backrest until it fell behind the sofa. I winced at the heavy thud as it dropped while thinking, why didn't I just stuff it from the side? I pushed the sofa to squeeze my body and hopefully hide it while offering a bit of protection. Following the shrieks of terror, came the pleas, help. Help. Someone, please help. Or that was what I thought the woman was yelling. I wondered which unit it was because it seemed a bit far from mine, the sounds too muffled. I picked up my knife and rushed back to my door. I waited and listened. Police. Call the police. It was the woman who was screaming earlier, but by the sound of it, she was able to get out of their room. She was pounding on the doors of the different units. Help. Someone is killing my husband. I peered through my peephole. Where was she? I wasn't being a bad guy here, but I hoped she would get attacked. Be my bait, lady. She sprinted past my view. There was no one chasing her. Fine, I was going to find the zombie myself. I opened the door and stepped out of the room. Thank God. Call the pole. I stared at her. A disheveled brunette in sheer, silk evening gown stared back. She was cradling her blood-covered arm as she stopped running and turned to see if someone was finally coming to her aid. Her hopeful face turned into one of confusion upon seeing me, a metal mannequin wielding a kitchen knife. "What are you?" she whispered as bewilderment turned into fear. "Monster." "Green," I said as I tossed my knife from my right to the left hand. "Could it be?" I pointed my right index finger at her fleeing back and concentrated on the thought of shooting. There was a hiss, similar to that of a soda can opening, and something burst out of my finger, hitting her right between her shoulder blades. The projectile was connected to my finger with a blue shining thread, reminiscent of the Anti-Adumbrae tasers of the police drones. But these weren't tasers. As soon as we were connected, something clicked in my head. Spooky Errand was right once again when she said this was pretty straightforward, and I would immediately understand what to do. "Stop," I ordered with my mind. The woman abruptly stopped in her tracks and fell to the floor, off-balanced by my sudden command. "Help! Help! I can't move!" She kept screaming inside her head. My consciousness wiggled into her mind. We were in one spot and it was getting cramped. "Lady, relax. You're so loud. Get out of my head. Help." Her incessant screaming was making my head hurt. There was no actual sound in my mind, but her thoughts were broadcasted on megaphones. "Let me go. My husband is dying. Relax, we'll help your husband. Just don't fight me." But she wasn't listening. She was freaking out, and I was also freaking out. Such a disgusting feeling this was to lose control. I couldn't blame her reaction. Any normal person would panic if a metal mannequin was trying to invade their mind right after they've escaped a zombie attack. The problem was she was projecting it back to me through our connection. Revolting emotions I wasn't used to were enveloping my mind. "Help! Anybody there? I can't move." She kept on trying to run away, but I held firm in imposing my will on her body to stay. She ended up convulsing on the ground as both of us fought for control. Shit! This lady was rampaging in her head. "Let me control your body. Help! Help!" She kept on yelling that over and over while continuing her attempts to get away from me. She didn't even realize there were a couple of monsters ahead of her and she was trying to run towards them. The two zombies headed towards us, awkwardly shuffling at first, but then their slow gait increased in speed. The tentacles growing out of their mouths thickened, ripping their cheeks wide open, turning their heads like that of Pac-Man. Literally grinning from ear to ear. To make matters worse, the ends of the whip-like tentacles began growing barbed spikes. And I wasn't making any headway in taking over the woman's body. This calls for drastic measures. I strode to the lady who was kneeling on the floor, her body shuddering as her mind took inputs from both of us. I raised my left arm, my hand clutching the knife. "Sorry for this, although, I'm really not." Then I smashed her temple with the butt of the knife's handle. Silence. The effect was instantaneous. It was like someone turned off a blaring radio. Credits to Mom and her lectures on how a young lady could protect herself when assaulted. A strike using anything hard on the temple could potentially knock someone out. And thankfully it worked. I was concerned I didn't hit hard enough and this woman would just get hurt but not pass out, she'd just end up screaming more and fighting me back even harder. I concentrated on sending energy to her through the glowing blue thread connecting us. Spooky Aaron didn't instruct me to do this, I simply felt like it was the right thing to do after we connected. I was momentarily mesmerized by the tiny red symbol painted on the fingernail of my right index finger coming to life, hypnotically rotating, until the mournful groans of the zombies coming nearer brought me back to reality. The zombies paused a couple of doors away from the woman and me, apparently sizing us up, growing even more tentacles. The heads of the zombies were no more, skull and flesh torn to shreds like a violently peeled banana but with bony bits. The tentacles were practically growing out of the zombie's neck. Those tentacles, in turn, were covered with claws, spikes, suction cups, mandibles, all sort of gross things. And they were filling up the corridor. The green color outlining the bodies of the zombies faded, almost gray now. The red from the tadpole-like creatures inside them, or perhaps parasites was the right term for those critters, became the dominant color. I pointed the index finger of my left hand and thought, shoot. But nothing came out. Did that mean red wasn't the correct target? This is bad, I said. I looked at my puppet. I decided to refer to her as that since I was controlling her body. She had started to change after I gave her power. Her muscles grew, their definition apparent as they stretched her skin thin, pushing her veins against it. The green hue covering her, while still glowing strong, was also noticeably starting to fade. I hope you're up for this. The tentacles snapped through the air and lashed at us. I bent down behind her, hands covering my head. Protect me. My puppet punched the tentacles with amazing accuracy, fending off all of them as they came close. Her speed and power were incredible. Just from the sound of each impact alone, I could sense the strength of each of her punches. Power. More power. From a ball of swirling energy inside of me, I drew power to send to my puppet. Defend me with all you've got. It was different from the overwhelming strength I felt when using the Blanchette face. This new immense power was stored inside me, inexplicable in its potential, but I knew it wasn't for me. It was for my puppet or puppets. The tentacles went splat on the walls and floor as my jacked-up puppet swatted them away. I tossed my knife to her and she grabbed it without looking. She proceeded to slash away at the disgusting things reaching for us. Slimy blood, and bits and pieces of the tentacles covered the floor as she advanced on the tentacle zombies. My knife was just made for cutting food. It wasn't supposed to be able to hack monsters to pieces, but through sheer strength and speed she was able to do it. I gaped with my metal mouth as I stared up at the carnage she wrought on the mesh of tentacles. I couldn't follow the wild movements of her arms at all. If I was in my Blanchette form, I bet she could turn me into sashimi before my powers could kickstart my regeneration and begin my werewolf transformation. I didn't think I could even heal that fast. Stop gawking, you idiot. Right. I looked back to check if the first zombie was finished killing this woman's husband. The corridor behind me was clear. Was it still in their unit? Better get back to the safety of my room, I thought as I continued pumping my puppet with energy and egging her on to kill the 2 tentacle zombies. Finish these 2 and then find that other one, then I was going to carry my human body to the elevator once everything was safe. Nice plan. I nearly slipped on the scattered pieces of the tentacles as I crawled on the floor. Some of the pieces were still alive, squiggling, trying to attack me. Fortunately, they were small and couldn't pierce through my hard plating. I ignored them. I hid behind the open door of my room and cheered my puppet on, amazed by her fighting prowess. This is a really cool power. Perfectly fitting the modus of my kind to manipulate other people. But she wasn't winning. More and more tentacles came. The tadpole parasites, which were really not tadpoles at this point but rather horrific creatures of sprawling tentacles, had eaten the upper body of their hosts, assumedly using it to create more tentacles. They were just tentacles with legs now. My puppet hacked and hacked until the knife broke. Then she grabbed any tentacle she could catch and began ripping them with her bare hands. The tentacles were unrelenting, and those that she couldn't catch hit her body, tearing her clothes, her skin, her flesh. I heard her bones crack. Her blood painted the walls and floor, mixing with the blood from the chopped tentacles. Unfeeling of pain, she kept on fighting. With her consciousness passed out, and probably for good, she couldn't go against my order to fight and protect me, even at the cost of her own life. The color just as I thought. A green tinge didn't only mean an appropriate target, it also referred to the life force whatever of the target. And this woman was dying. Maybe from getting pumped with my power, her body achieving strength that it couldn't sustain for a long time. Maybe from the attacks of the tentacle monsters. Probably both. I needed her to win before she died. Get even stronger, I thought, concentrating on further juicing my puppet. She fought even more fiercely, breaching the wall of lashing tentacles and jumping on the main body of one of the zombies. Several of the surviving tentacles of both monsters coiled around each, merging into one particularly large tentacle. Its end formed a huge ball covered with spiky barnacles. They smashed my puppet with this new giant tentacle mace, throwing her across the corridor. She slammed into my door, breaking it, knocking me back as well. Both of us, as well as broken pieces of door, skidded across the floor. I scrambled to sit back up, disentangling my body from my puppet and the wreckage. "Are you okay?" I stupidly asked her, as if she could reply. Answering for her, no, she wasn't. She was horribly deformed and mangled beyond recognition. Her skin was red from the blood vessels that burst from her rapid growth, and there was tearing in some spots where her muscles suddenly grew too large. Some of her broken bones also protruded out of her flesh. It was her mutated muscles that somehow kept her body going, but not for long. If only she had the regeneration of an Adumbrae. She was beyond saving now, the green color turning muddy gray like the first zombie I saw. Unfortunately, the tentacle zombies were still alive. I needed her to fight while I find a replacement. I scanned the other rooms. The door of the room across the unit beside mine creaked open. A man crouched in the darkness of his room with a gun in hand. He peeked suspiciously at me, trying to understand what he was seeing. His eyes darted between me and the bloody woman struggling to get up to fulfill my order to continue fighting. I could see it in his eyes that he assumed the worst. "Don't shoot. Die, you killer robot." Bang! My head jerked back. He fired his gun a couple more times, accurately landing headshots. I hit the floor again. The man rushed out of his room, his gun still trained on me. I laid unmoving, keeping my jittery cyclopean eye still as he gave me a quick look over. I couldn't feel pain, but I did feel the heavy impact of the bullets vibrating through my body. Then he rushed to the aid of my puppet. "Are you okay, miss?" He turned his head towards the sound of the thrashing tentacles, letting out a yelp of surprise. My hands checked my face and I didn't find any holes. "Am I indestructible?" "What the hell is that?" he exclaimed at the conjoined twin zombies sharing a huge tentacle mace. He raised his gun, fired a single shot which didn't do anything to stop the monster walking towards us on its 4 legs. The man thought better of it and decided to instead pull the woman to his room rather than try to stupidly fight it. "His gun," I ordered. "And disable him." The woman slapped the gun out of the man's hand and punched him in the stomach. He doubled over yelling profanities. My puppet followed it up with her knee at his lowered face. He fell back through the doorway of his room, unconscious. I hoped she didn't kill him. My puppet roared with a guttural voice of a dying beast as she charged at the abomination. I quickly crawled to the unconscious man. His head was bloody from getting hit by my puppet. He wasn't dead, was he? Even if his room was dark, the dim lights from the corridor barely entering, my special eye could see that his chest was feebly moving. He also had a healthy green color. "I hope this works on you." "Time for some finger action," I said, as I shot him between his eyes with my left index finger. That sounded wrong. Feeling our minds linked, and making sure that he really was passed out, I fed him power from the well of energy inside me through the blue thread linking us. It was too dangerous to give him powers if I didn't have control of his body. What? "He's waking," I said in surprise. His green light blinking brighter. The gash on his forehead stopped bleeding and was actually healing. So that's my second ability. "Don't move," I transmitted to his mind. "What's happening?" "Don't move," I repeated, firmer this time. After confirming my second ability, I stopped pumping him with its power. "You monster. Why can't move?" Just as with the woman before, the two of us struggled for the control of his body. "Stop. Stop." What are you doing to me? This guy was tough. His face was getting bruised, but he was still awake. I tried landing my punches on his temples, but he was starting to push me away from his mind. He moved his head to at least try to soften the blows. Go. 2. Sleep, I said with each punch. I could still save my puppet if I hooked her up with my healing ability while using the finger of strength on this guy. I really needed to think of better names for these. The man fought with amazing willpower to push me out of his mind. He broke our stalemate and slowly raised his shaking arms to cover his face. I pried them open while pushing back in our mental battle to make him surrender his body. One more downward punch, this time putting the weight of my upper body behind it, and I finally sent this guy to the dream world. Yes. But then I also sensed that my connection with the woman was broken. No. Did she at least kill the tentacle monster outside? The grating screeches and roars from the corridor filtering in the room answered me in the negative. No matter. I had a new toy ahem, helper, excuse me. You're going to fight so both of us will survive, I said, as I ordered him to go out of the room before me. I spotted the gun on the floor. I picked it up knowing that it wouldn't be of much help with the enemies we were facing. This is for our own survey. What the hell happened here? A giant ball of leathery brown flesh was on top of a bloody mess of human limbs and tentacles. It was barely able to fit in the corridor. This ball stood up on its 2 feet or hands. It didn't have any feet, just muscular arms extending from its sides and turned around to face me. It wasn't an asshole. It was a freakin' huge-ass mouth. A mouth wide enough to swallow a full-grown man. Its square teeth, each one as large and as thick as phone books, were chomping on a leg. The scraps of shredded satin on the floor and in between the mouth monster's teeth were enough to tell me of the fate of my first puppet. Judging from the severed anaconda-like tentacles still squiggling on the floor, and the clump of 4 legs by its side, she did pretty well before this new guy showed up and ate her. Another zombie followed him out of the room, a guy in his underwear. He had deep cuts across his chest, but they were being sewn shut by tiny tentacles erupting out of his skin. He was possibly the husband of my first puppet. In the end, they both died around the same time. How sweet. Don't worry, I said, I'm going to send you to wherever afterlife your sweetheart is now. I looked to the left and right at the enemies sandwiching me. They were coming nearer. How I wished I had facial muscles so I could smirk. I was more confident this time. My new puppet was rapidly growing in size. And I connected my healing thread to him too, counteracting the massive damage his body endured from being forcibly mutated into a brutish monster. He was still dying at a pretty rapid rate, which was why he didn't wake up even if I was healing him. Time for round 2, you pieces of mutated shit. Charles Ramon Peterson, who preferred to be called by his second name, Ramon, as homage to his Latino roots on his mother's side, pulled down the stiff bill of the Marty's Pizza House cap he wore to cover his face. He sunk low in his chair, trying to hide behind the cushy armrest, as the quintessential girl next door, the beautiful angel, Erin Hartwell, passed by the condominium's front desk after buying a bottled drink from one of the vending machines at the right nook of the lobby. She was going to the elevators at the left wing of the U-shaped building to go back to her room. Referring to Erin as a beautiful angel might be too much if you asked other people. He had shown his friends a picture of her that he dug up from the internet, and their verdict was that she was cute in a nerdy way but was also on the plainer side. And all of them can suck it because Erin is an angel to him. He peeked from the side of the brim of his cap, hoping she wouldn't look in his direction by the sofa chairs of the lobby. He might not be able to stop himself from waving at her, and then what? She'd think he was a creep. That's what. Did she notice him now? He saw her several minutes ago entering the building in a hurry, wearing a hoodie and jeans, and he was sure she didn't glance his way that time as she jogged to the elevators. Then, when she went back down after changing clothes, he considered approaching her. He came to the conclusion that it was a stupid idea and stopped himself before he did anything embarrassing. It would probably be awkward given the situation, and could get even more awkward if the dude who ordered the pizza arrived to get his food and saw him hitting on a girl when he should be doing his job. He did have an order to deliver at this late hour. It was only a coincidence that he saw Erend. A God-sent coincidence. He'd take any opportunity to see her, even from afar. Honest to God, he wasn't stalking her. But what if she thought he was stalking her? Waiting for her in the lobby. Maybe she even assumed he was following her outside. Shit, man, he didn't give off desperate stalker vibes when he talked to her earlier, did he? Hope not, he thought as he stared at her. Erend stood by the elevators, waiting for one to come down. She didn't have her glasses on. He guessed that she only needed them for reading. Without her glasses, she had a different air about her. She wore an oversized dark blue blouse that fell off her right shoulder and very short shorts that had an athletic design. His older sister told him the right term for those shorts before. Was it dolphins? Dolphin shorts or something that sounded dumb. He admired her as she looked up at the descending numbers of the elevator. In his humble opinion, the only opinion that mattered, and it came to Erend, and everyone else who thought otherwise could eat shit. Erend would look great in anything. She could wear a garbage bag, or a potato sack, or even nothing. Bro. Chill out, he chided himself, mentally kicking his ass to clear his mind. That was exactly the kind of immature thinking he should avoid if he was going to try asking her out. The picture of her from the internet was taken during a speech she gave in a contest in her college probably a couple years ago, so he was sure she was older than him. And from a survey of his sisters, his female cousins, and also friends, about 9 out of 10 times, the answer he got was that they preferred guys older than them. Now, he didn't know the preference of Erend, but if he couldn't be actually older than her, at least he should attempt to be mentally and emotionally mature. His older sister told him that was what girls were mainly looking for when they say they want an older guy. Reliability, commitment, those kinds of things. Shit he should work on. But maybe he could be immature for one last time. Ramon raised his phone to try and take another photo of Erend. The elevator dinged open and she got on, turning around as she entered, then pressing the button for her floor. He hastily put away his phone and faced to his side, closely examined the palm tree beside him with great concentration, waiting for the sound of the elevator going up to echo in the empty lobby. I nearly got a heart attack there. Did she see him? He wasn't sure since he was intently trying to get a good shot of her. What a dumbass move, he muttered. Really, really dumb. He dragged his palm across his face. It was fine if she saw him, it was another matter if she also noticed he was trying to take her picture. He would know the next time she ordered pizza based on how she'd react to him. Or maybe she did notice and she wouldn't order from Marty's Pizza House ever again. Oh, man. And the picture he took wasn't even good. It was a blurry mess because he wasn't able to keep his phone still. He swiped to the other picture he took of Erend. She was in front of the vending machines, deciding what to buy. He congratulated himself on getting a good side profile of her. Did she wear those clothes to sleep? She looked really cute in them. She also binges on pizza, and maybe she plays video games too. He decided to ask her that next time if there was a next time. Should he just delete that other photo? It was pretty unrecognizable. His finger hovered hesitantly over the delete button, then decided to keep it because it might be the last he'd see of her after the stupid move he just pulled. Stupid, stupid, he said with a groan, hitting his forehead with his knuckles. He resolved that on his next day off he'd hang around this lobby to try and wait for her if she'd show up, and then he'd profusely apologize. Maybe bring some flowers. What was that drink she bought? Was that her favorite? He could check and also buy her a bottle, share a drink with her or something romantic. Or maybe I should just put "stalker" on my nameplate. He shook his head. Shit, man. What do I do here? Ramon, my boy, someone called to him. Bodhi, one of the guards assigned for the graveyard shift, approached him, probably just finished patrolling the right wing of the building. He seemed to be in his early 40s, fit and beefy, actually looking like he could guard something compared to dumpy old man Johnson who stayed at a small desk by the entrance watching his Mexican soap operas. "Got another delivery?" Bodhi said. "It's very late to be eating pizza." "Yes, sir. Our pizza's so good you'll want to eat them any hour of the day." "You should make that your motto," he said with a raspy laugh. He mentioned he used to smoke a pack per day. "Working hard, I see." "Scholarship can't pay for everything," was Ramon's reply. Bodhi already knew about his situation because they chatted plenty of times in previous deliveries, so he didn't elaborate further. "Who's the delivery for?" Bodhi counted the stacks for pizza boxes. "For boxes? That's not for Ms. Hartwell then." "Yeah, she only ever orders one box," he said. "These are for," he paused to check the receipt, "Mr. Daniels." "I see. Too bad you won't get to meet her." "She ordered from us earlier," he said with a grin, "so I did see her." He glanced at the elevators to make sure Erin didn't go back down again. "Also, just now, she bought something from the vending machine, so I saw her again. But I didn't talk to her." He didn't mention he was trying to take her picture. "Why not? You have to take every opportunity you got, my boy. Life's too short to hesitate." "Life's too short," he repeated wistfully. "Yeah, you're right. It's just that, do I even have a shot?" "You'll never get a shot if you don't ask, my boy. A shot doesn't just fall from the sky right on your lap." "Wise words, Mr. Bodhi," he said, "but I'm talking about like, she can afford a place like this. And I've seen her wearing an Alois University jacket before. I'm not sure if she goes there or someone gave it to her." "Come on, my boy, I already told you, no need to call me Mr. Bodhi," the guard said. "We're all friends here. Anyway, she does go to Alois." He noticed Ramon's disheartened face. "But that doesn't mean you got no shot. If you show her you're a hardworking and committed person, I'm sure she'll give you a chance despite you and her, how do I say this? Different social standing. Economic too." Ramon sighed. "Different social and economic standing. Let's go with that. My point still stands." "You're right, Mr. Bodhi, Bodhi. If I don't even try, I wouldn't know. If she rejects me, then at least I tried. But I'm also not sure if she already has a boyfriend. I don't want to be that kind of guy, you know." "I don't think she does. Haven't seen her with a guy. We did promise you we'll tell you if we think she has one. Here's Johnson, we can ask him." In a rare occurrence worth recording in the history books, old man Johnson stopped watching his small TV, got up from his eternally squashed chair, and waddled over to them. "Good evening, fine gents. What are you discussing?" "Ask me about what?" "My boy Ramon here was wondering if Miss Hartwell has a boyfriend. I told him we haven't seen anyone who could be our target." "Ho ho, we'll take care of anyone who could be your rival," Johnson chuckled, holding his belly. "We swore a pizza oath that fateful day. Ramon did give them pizza before, bought out of his own pocket, so he'd gain their friendship and they'd chat with him about errand." Johnson patted his back. "Kidding, ho ho ho, but it's true we haven't seen Miss Hartwell with a guy." "I saw her enter the building about 10 minutes ago though," Ramon said. "At this late hour could she have visited someone? A guy?" "Nah, she told me she was out jogging." Bodhi folded his arms and scratched his neatly trimmed beard. "But she was away for a couple of weeks though. She only returned today." He checked his watch. "Or yesterday rather." "She was?" Ramon's brows furrowed. "That explains the lack of orders then. Do you know where she went?" "Don't worry about that, my boy," Bodhi said. "She stayed over at a friend's house, a female friend. I think Johnson saw her. She's a looker. An absolute stunner," Johnson said eagerly, his frizzled mustache quaking. "The friend, not Miss Hartwell." No offense to Miss Hartwell, he clarified with a knowing wink at him. That gorgeous woman was helping Miss Hartwell carry her bags up to her room. Probably they got a project or something, so she had to stay at her friend's house. Probably, Ramon replied, still unconvinced. Johnson picked the chair beside his and lowered himself on it with great effort. There we go. Nice and easy. He adjusted his uniform that went taut in his midsection. There's nothing to worry, yeah. Miss Hartwell's, she's a loner through and through. She's the only one in her room, no roommates, no family, no nothing. I haven't seen her bring a guy up. He turned to Bodhi. Have you? Nope, didn't notice anyone. Ramon nodded. Slowly. That's good news then. You shoulda seen Ms. Aaron's friend, Johnson said. He gestured in the air, making curves. A rockin' body. A very shapely blonde. She could be a model for those expensive brands with her looks. Don't be weird, Johnson, Bodhi said sternly. Ho ho, that's because you haven't seen her. I'm just telling our Ramon that maybe his plan should be to make friends with Ms. Hartwell so he'll get introduced to her gorgeous blonde friend. I'm Team Aaron forever, Johnson, he replied, my heart is for one and only. My boy Ramon here not chasing looks, Bodhi said. Yeah, I'll defend Team Aaron till my last breath. Atta boy. Bodhi roared, enthusiastically slapping his back. All of them laughed. As their chuckling chorus died down, he said, who's that delivery for again? You've been waiting for some time already. It's for a certain Mr. Daniels. Stephen Daniels. Bodhi turned to his partner. Do you know him? Johnson grunted as he shifted in his seat. We probably got a couple of Mr. Daniels here. Not sure which one is named Stephen. Ramon, have you called him? Yes, I've called him a couple of times, but he's not answering. I'll try calling again. You do that, Johnson said. He grabbed the armrests of the sofa with his huge hands and pushed himself up with great effort. The chair creaked in protest. I'll check with Krista if we can get the room number of this guy, then we'll call him. He then ambled to the front desk accompanied by Bodhi. Ramon tried to call their customer again while following the two guards. Where's Krista? Johnson said as they came upon an empty counter. In the comfort room perhaps, replied Bodhi. She said she was feeling unwell. She mentioned something about the smell making her nauseous. I did smell it a few times while patrolling, but couldn't find where it was coming from. How odd that it was in various places in the building. Krista should be on top of coursing those complaints to the management. I wonder why they suddenly changed the people they send here. Johnson went to the other side and checked the computer terminal. I'll look for that Daniels guy. Hey, Krista will be angry with you if you do that. Bodhi leaned on the counter but didn't actually do anything to stop his partner. I can't contact him, Ramon said, looking at his phone. The signal is very weak now, it's gone. He shook his phone and checked the screen again. That's weird. I could contact him before but he just wasn't answering. Bodhi took out his phone. Really? Oh, you're right, my boy. I don't have a signal as well. You're right on that, Johnson. Maybe it's just reception, Ramon said. I'll go outside, huh? He squinted his eyes at the entrance glass doors. It seemed like something was blocking it. What's everything getting broken nowadays? Johnson said, shaking his head. After a final tap on the keyboard, he stood straight and pulled up his built. Stephen Daniels, Unit 1401. I'll just call him. Bodhi, Johnson, I'm not sure but. What are you doing there? The three of them turned to the sound of the croaking voice. A woman wearing the uniform of the condominium property management shuffled towards them. She was trailing dark liquid on the floor. The front part of the blue vest she donned was wet with the same substance. Ma'am, Krista. Ramon said, barely recognizing the nice lady who gave him the old books of her children who already graduated college. "Are you all right?" he needlessly asked, as there was something seriously wrong with how she looked. She had a complexion that was inhumanly ashen except for the prominent red veins that crossed her face like a mask made out of spider webs. Her eyes were pure black and she was crying black tears. "Johnson, don't touch the computer," she said with great effort. She stopped walking and vomited black goo that looked like tar. All three of them reflexively recoiled. "Jesus Christ! Krista, what the hell happened to you?" Johnson tried to rush over but Bodhi headed him off. "What? She needs help." Bodhi pulled him back, then drew his gun. "Can't you see? We might be the ones who'll need help." "Johnson, Bodhi," Krista said. "It hurts something inside me. She could be an Adumbrae." "Adumbrae? Goddamn. Johnson also whipped out his weapon and aimed. "Stay back, Krista." "What do I do?" Ramon said. He instinctively dialed the emergency hotline for Adumbrae reports, then smacked himself in the head, remembering there was no signal. He glanced over at the entrance of the building. He really couldn't see the street outside. It was completely blocked by something he couldn't tell. "Stay back, Ramon." Bodhi also started retreating while keeping his gun trained on Krista's head. "Krista. If you're still inside there somewhere, please go away. Don't make us do tea." She opened her mouth wide. An arm covered in black slime came out. Bodhi and Johnson opened fire. "Her head!" Bodhi yelled. The two guards fired as accurately as they could into the most vulnerable part of an Adumbrae, its brain. The arm that came out of Krista's mouth thrashed ferociously in the air, blocking most of the bullets from connecting with the head. It was way sturdier than mere human flesh and didn't seem affected by the gunfire. Unable to find any success, Johnson lowered his aim, targeted Krista's torso, but she stood firm even as her body shook from the bullets. Damn it, damn it. Ramon backed away from the fight, unable to make up his mind whether to help or run away. But what could he do here? He tried to call the BID emergency hotline, which should be open even if there was a signal lock, but even that didn't work. "Johnson, we have to hit the head." "But that hand." "Side." Bodhi roared. He ran perpendicularly to the right of the monster while pointing Johnson to the left. His partner, moving with impressive speed, got out of the front desk counter and flanked the Adumbrae on the other side. "Fire. Let's kill it, Johnson." Both of them peppered it with bullets. The goo-covered arm couldn't keep up, blocking the bullets coming from two angles even with its insane speed, and the two guards were able to get some good hits in. It wasn't blood that came spurting out of Krista's wounds, but that same ominous black goo she vomited. "Reload," Bodhi said, and Johnson followed suit. Both of them raised their guns in unison, but held their fire as Krista tittered and then fell to the floor on her back. The mysterious arm blackened with the goo, twitched for a couple of tense seconds, and stopped moving. "Oh, man, Krista," Johnson said, lowering his smoking gun. "Well, what do we do?" Ramon said. "I can't contact the police or the BID." He pointed at the glass doors. "And there's something blocking the entrance." Bodhi wasn't listening. He was trying to contact someone on his radio. "Adam? Come in. You there? We have an emergency." "Adam." Only static was the reply. Johnson, on the other hand, knelt beside Krista's body, mumbling her name repeatedly. "Bodhi, the door." "Fritz. Dickens," he yelled into his radio. "Johnson, the security room, the boys at parking." "They're not respond." He turned his head and found his sobbing partner caressing the face of their deceased coworker turned monster. "Get away from her." The hand growing out of Krista's mouth came back to life and swiped at Johnson's head. "Arg," he yelled, clutching his face. A chunk of the flesh on his cheek was in the black hand's grasp. Johnson stood up but tripped in his haste, falling smack right back on the floor. He kicked the body of Krista away as the black hand reached for him, and crawled away as fast as possible given his massive size. No! Bodhi yelled. He fired a couple of shots at Krista's body that was lying motionless, but stopped when the black hand started dragging it across the floor as it chased Johnson. He'd risk hitting his partner if he continued shooting. "Help me," Johnson said. He looked back to try and shoot it, but the black hand took this as an opportunity to catch up to him, grabbing his leg. He screamed in pain, drowning the stomach-turning crunch of his bones. The hand squeezed his leg like it was a tube of toothpaste. Bones burst out of his skin as blood and flesh erupted in the air like confetti. "Help! AA!" He shot wildly at everything. Bodhi charged at Ramon, tackling him to the ground. "Keep your head down." Ramon obeyed and laid himself as flat as possible with his hands covering his head. Bodhi was on top of him, attempting to shield him. "Am I going to die?" Memories of his family, especially his mother who passed away a few years ago, swam in his head, filling his heart with determination to survive no matter what it took. He had plenty left to do in this world. The face of Erend centered in his mind. "No, no, no," he repeated to himself. "I'm not going to die here." Ramon had other plans. Gathering strength that wouldn't be possible without the adrenaline pumping through his veins, he grabbed the nearest potted palm tree that was bigger and heavier than him, and rushed to Krista and Johnson while carrying it above his head, screaming like a madman. "Take this Adumbrae," he yelled as he slammed the huge pot on Krista. Her head exploded like a squeezed grape, painting the floor with more of the black goo. The hand let go of Johnson's leg, and Bodhi was already there to pull his partner away from harm. Ramon jumped over Krista's corpse to get to the side of the two guards and helped in dragging the injured Johnson. As they reached the front desk, Ramon collapsed on the floor, his arms and legs shivering from the intense physical exertion. He was fit and worked out in his free time at the cobbled-together backyard gym of his uncle, but he was sure he wouldn't be able to lift that potted palm tree if this was a different situation. Bodhi peered over the counter, his gun held close to his chest. "It's not moving," he whispered. "Where do we go now?" Ramon replied, heavily breathing. "What do we do?" "Just leave me here," Johnson said. Sweat covered his face and he was beginning to pale. His words were hard to understand, slurring and airy because his left cheek was partially gone. Ramon could see some of Johnson's teeth peeking through the gaps of shredded flesh. He held his breath and closed his eyes as he felt that he was about to puke. I can't walk anymore." "I'm not going to leave you," Bodhi said. "Hey Bodhi, listen up, Bodhi." He pulled his partner down. "I'm bleeding and in pain and there may be more of those things here." "You can't know that for sure." Adam and Fritz responding. "The others, something bad must have happened to them. We're going to get you out." Bodhi grabbed Ramon. "You'll help me, right?" "My boy, Ramon, tell Johnson we're going to get him out." Yes. "Yes, we will," Ramon replied, but he wasn't too sure of that. He couldn't feel his arms and legs. His strength spent in that moment of reckless courage. His heart was pounding so hard in his chest that he wouldn't be surprised if it jumped out of his mouth. "But the entrance is blocked," he said. "How can we get out?" "What are you talking about?" Bodhi said, poking his head over the counter again to check the glass doors, only now realizing just how weird everything was. What's going on?" Johnson pushed his partners back. "Go by the pool or the kitchen, just go. You're coming with us. It's not going to work you carrying me. Just go." Ding! It was one of the elevators from the right wing of the building. "A resident?" Bodhi stood up and pointed his gun at Krista's body. "I have to protect them." The person who alighted the elevator walked out of the corridor at the right side of the lobby and came into view. The man wearing the uniform of cleaning personnel was pulling a large cart full of cleaning equipment with a mop bucket attached to it at the end. Short and thin and walking with a slight hunch, he was probably in his late 50s and aging didn't do him justice. Ramon vaguely remembered this man when he delivered Aaron's order. A woman was hounding him with complaints. She was really loud and caused a scene, which was why it stuck to his memory. The new janitor? Ramon said. He hadn't seen this man before that incident, even though he knew, at least by face, most of the people working in this building. Was this the temp Johnson mentioned? Yes, he is, Bodhi confirmed. Bodhi, Johnson croaked, reaching for his partner. Get that man and all of you escape. The janitor stared curiously at the large potted plant on top of Krista's corpse and approached it. He didn't have any reaction besides mild interest. You. Bodhi waved at him. I forgot his name. He walked out from behind the counter. Get away from that body. What happened here? The janitor said. Did you kill her? It's not what it looks like, Bodhi said. She's an Adumbrae. Adumbrae? No, you're wrong. You don't have to believe us, but you need to come with us for your own safety. The janitor simply stared at him. Come here. We don't know if that thing's really dead. It's dead, all right. My child is dead. Huh. The janitor clapped. Bravo for managing to kill one of my children. Well, what's happening? Johnson feebly said. Ramon also understood the whole situation with that one word. And the smell. That foul smell from when he delivered Aaron's order was here again. Their situation was going from bad to worse. His survival instincts kicked in. Johnson, where are your bullets? Unfortunately, the injured guard was drifting in and out of consciousness and couldn't answer. He patted down the injured man and found a clip inside his vest. The gun. Where was it? He also didn't listen to Bodhi, diving for Johnson's gun that he dropped as they pulled him. Then he rushed back to Bodhi's side, reloading the gun as he ran, recalling what his uncle taught him several times when he hid inside their house from a rival gang. He took his position beside Bodhi just as the janitor fished for something in his large yellow mop bucket. What do we do? You know how to use that? Let's just say, I've been raised in a bad neighborhood. I've got a present for you, the janitor said. From the bucket, he retrieved a wriggling fat worm or leech of some kind, about the size of a hot dog bun. Bodhi's eyes darted between the unconscious Johnson, Ramon, and the janitor. Boy, you have to make a run for it. You know the way to the kitchen. It connects to the... I'm not going to leave you here. No. I'm not going to leave Johnson's dying ass here. You, on the other hand, are going to escape. What's this? The janitor said, juggling the thick slug. You're not listening to me even when I am so kind as to give you a present. Ramon tucked the gun in his pants, grabbed one of Johnson's arms and tried to pull him away, but he could barely move him. Bodhi tried stomping his foot on the slug, but it swerved. The slug jumped to Johnson's nearly severed leg, burrowing into his exposed flesh. The unconscious guard woke up from the pain and started screaming again. Johnson. Ramon helplessly called. What do I do? Find it, Bodhi said. He got something from inside his vest. A large Swiss knife. He flicked the blade out. Ramon nodded. He tore Johnson's pants with his fingers and patted his flesh, looking for the invasive slug. Here, he said, feeling a bump in his inner thigh that shouldn't be there. He tried to cup it with his hands, putting pressure to hold it in its place somewhere deep in Johnson's flesh. I'm sorry, Johnson, Bodhi said, plunging the blade into the large lump. Foul-smelling black goo spurted out of the wound. His partner screamed and flailed his limbs in a frenzy. Ramon threw his body over Johnson to keep him still as Bodhi added a few more stabs for good measure. Is it dead? I don't know. Ramon looked past Bodhi at what the janitor was doing. Look out. Bodhi turned just as a slug flew towards his face. It went inside his mouth before he could react. Erg, he coughed violently but the slug didn't come it. Ugh, run. What did you do to him? Ramon raised his gun at the janitor who was looking at them with an amused expression even though the right side of his clothes were soaked in blood from his wounded shoulder. He had another slug in his hand. Bodhi pushed him. Ramon Erg cock. Run. A tentacle poked out of his nose. Run please. He nodded once and fled to the left wing of the building. Past the elevators was a huge restaurant that opened up to the garden surrounding an Olympic-sized pool. He could go there and try to scale the back wall to escape. Bodhi mentioned that there was also a way in the kitchen. A back entrance of some sort. Maybe the restaurant connected to the kitchen too. However, he stopped in front of the row of elevator doors instead of continuing on to the restaurant. He pressed the up button while wondering if he had gone mad. He'd only trap himself if he went up. But there was someone up there who would surely be trapped if he didn't come to save her. Aaron Hartwell. Ramon pointed his gun at the corner going to the lobby while waiting for one of the elevators to come down. Come down quick. A gunshot cracked in the air and he crouched low. Was that Bodhi? Did he manage to kill the janitor? But Bodhi would be calling for him if everything was safe. A door dinged open. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and decided that going for Aaron was the right choice. He hurried to the elevator door and bumped into the chest of a large person inside. He fell on his own butt. What the, he said, massaging his nose. In front of him was a massive man whose upper body, including his entire head, was wrapped in bandages. He wore a heavily worn-down trench coat and beach shorts. He looked down and saw that the legs of the man were also wrapped in bandages. With his instincts screaming, danger, at him, he shot the man in the head after a second of indecisiveness. A black point appeared on the man's forehead. The bandages around the bullet hole reddened with blood. Unfortunately, the man didn't care about the hole in his brain. Well, he said, catching Ramon's gun-wielding arm. What do we have here? He closed his eyes. Aaron, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I sounded like a regular villain right there, said the man covered in bandages. He wheezed at his own realization. Wrong place, wrong time, bud. Tough luck. He picked Ramon up like he weighed nothing. You coming with me? Ramon's arms were getting crushed against his sides. But he wasn't getting captured this easily. He twisted his body while in the reptile man's grip and kicked sideways, hitting his captor's flank. It was as hard as a rock and there were pointy protrusions all over his body. Ah! Shit, my knee. If you only stayed still. Be a good boy and I'll tell Mister to let you watch this momentous occasion. He strained to extend his arms outward and open his captor's grip but he couldn't move the giant fingers an inch. He said, you're not going to turn me into one of you. He also wanted to add, just kill me, but the words wouldn't come out. He had been taught since he was a child that it was better to die than become an Adumbrae. Deep in his heart, he knew what his mother taught him was correct. He had seen what they were capable of, the destruction they caused, the monstrous changes their bodies underwent. But I also don't want to die. Not yet. Twitchy little brat, aren't ya? The bandaged man said. The man carried him like a piece of luggage back to the lobby where the janitor and the two guards were. He stopped struggling as he realized that angering the Adumbrae would only accelerate his death. He was aware that he was powerless right now. Bravado had its limits, empty bravado had no place if he wanted to live. And he couldn't save Aaron if he died now. What do you want with me? He asked, hoping there was something he could use to survive seeing as he wasn't immediately killed. I don't want anything with you, but let's ask Mister if he does. Mister who? What are you talking about? Bid agents are in this city, they'll catch. As they got out of the corridor of elevators and into the main lobby, Ramon spotted Bodhi lying face down on the floor a few feet away from Johnson, a pool of blood collecting around his head, the janitor looking intently over him. Bodhi. Hi there, mister, the reptile man said. The janitor looked up. Slinky, I see you found a new friend. I also see that you have a bullet hole on your forehead. It's nothing. Why did you kill him? Ramon shouted. You damn Adumbrae. He nodded at the guard on the floor. Kid, you mean this? He did that to himself. Turns out he didn't want to become like your other friend over there. The janitor, who was apparently called Mr., jabbed his thumb towards Krista's corpse. Huh. Bodhi wouldn't kill himself, Ramon stammered. Or would he? Slinky, why did you pick up that kid? I shouldn't. I wanted him to get away. See how's he going to survive in this place? Yes, wait. On second thought, bring him here. Ramon wasn't paying attention to their conversation because he was focused on Bodhi. The reptile man with the gigantic hand dropped him beside the guard. Bodhi, he really did kill himself, he thought as he crawled over to him. Why? Were they using the slug creatures to turn people into Adumbrae? But turning into an Adumbrae required willingness, so that wasn't it. A monster then, some sort of sick experiment, something only someone as evil as an Adumbrae could think of. Bodhi must have realized what was happening to his body and turned his gun on himself, choosing to die a human. Here, Bud, the reptile man said, tossing Johnson's gun to him. What was he supposed to do with a gun? He knew there was no way he could kill them with it. Perhaps the one called Mr. if he could land a headshot. If. He eyed the man's shoulder wound that has apparently healed. There was, however, no way he could kill this reptile man named Slinky. If shooting his head, which was supposed to be the weakness of Adumbrae, didn't work, then what could he do? Why did you give him the gun? Mr. said. I ain't a thief. That's not even his. Ramon held the weapon, gazing at the metal surface of the barrel. Johnson took care of it well. It was so shiny that his own despairing face stared back at him. If they tried to turn him into a monster, should he do the same thing as Bodhi? He swallowed his saliva. Can I kill myself? Why the long face, kid? Mr. asked, squatting beside him. He patted Bodhi's back. You seem to know this person. Am I right? Ramon tightened the grip on the gun. Mr. was so close. How fast could he react if he shot him? After a couple seconds of thinking, he simply nodded. Are you sad that he's dead? Again, he nodded. But he isn't. Hey, looks pretty dead to me, Slinky said, peering over them. He isn't, Mr. repeated. My child is still inside. I could sense it already bonded with him. If he was dead, my child would have already exited his body. He turned Bodhi's head, peering at the front of his head. Ramon faced away, avoiding the gruesome sight. It appears he blew his face off but missed the important parts of his brain. Oof, that's gotta hurt. Slinky stamped his foot as if cringing. Must have angled his gun the wrong way when he swallowed the end of the barrel. I heard that happens sometimes. No, he didn't make a mistake, Mr. said, examining the mess that was Bodhi's face while Ramon looked in every other place except that direction. He was aiming for my child, digging in his face, trying to reach his brain. Gutsy. I like this guy. From the looks of it, he hit part of my child. Is it going to be okay? The subject? XR-01A was it? Or is this one of the XR-03? Those slug-looking things. My child is going to be fine, he said evenly, giving Slinky a cold look. He took out his cell phone and began to video Bodhi. Very interesting to see how my child will perform given a nearly dying body. It's a different scenario if it already has taken root before a body is gravely injured. If it has already hijacked the brain and broken the Alois field to connect. What do you want with me? Ramon said. Do you want me to kill him? Perhaps the reason they kept him alive was because they wanted to toy with him. They were Adumbrae, he expected nothing less than vile wickedness from them. Mr. regarded him with a smile. How did you come to that conclusion? Is that it? You want me to kill him before he turns into a monster? No, such a barbaric way of thinking. Do you assume I'm a psychopath? I'm a man of science, a man that wants to see the evolution of the human race. And I want you to witness it as well. Educating the young, a noble goal. Nice, Slinky said. I was planning to ask ya if you'd let him watch what's going to happen in this building. I'd say great minds think alike, but that'd be an insult to ya, mister. My mind's nothing like yours. In more ways than one. Mr. stood up and took pictures of Bodhi at different angles, the flash of the camera bathing the body each time. Kid, you're going to see what will happen to your friend here. It's going to be, let's see, what do young people say, neat? Yes, it's going to be neat. Looks like ya luck is turning around, kid, Slinky said. Mister's taken a liking to ya. Lighten up. We're not going to do anything bad to ya. You, however, Mr. deliberately said, are free to do anything you want. Ramon clenched his jaws. Although they say that, he understood they were implying the exact opposite. And even if they were truthfully saying that they meant him no harm, which he had to be absolutely brain-dead to believe, would he just sit back and watch as Bodhi transformed into a monster like Krista? His palm holding the gun was starting to sweat. He wasn't family, they weren't even close friends. But they were friends nonetheless. And they were fellow humans. Didn't he have the moral obligation to kill Bodhi now before he became a monster? At least, I should put him out of his pain, right? Before he could further think about his dilemma, there was a rumble by the entrance of the building. Salvation? He dared hoped. Had the bid been alerted and came to the rescue? Slinky instantly unwound the bandages on his hands and grew long scythe-like claws. The wall of darkness that blocked the doors had dissipated and a large group led by a woman walked into the lobby. Stand down, it's just Stella, Mr. said. Stella and the rabble, Slinky muttered. No, it was more of these Adumbrae. Their followers. Ramon knew that some Adumbrae formed cults and various groups to manipulate people. Were they all part of a big secret organization of Adumbrae? This was the group the bid fought a couple of days ago. The woman appeared to be half Asian, probably of Korean descent. Some of her features reminded Ramon of the Korean family who ran a small supermarket near the tiny apartment room he rented. She wore a fitting charcoal business suit, its buttons struggling to keep it close as her bust strained against it. Black skin-tight pants highlighted her shapely legs. Her heels clicked on the tiles like a ticking time bomb counting down to his eventual end. She had softly shaped face which contrasted with her loud and authoritative voice as she barked orders on the phone. Despite the fear and stress, Ramon couldn't help but be mesmerized by this woman's exotic beauty that he nearly forgot about his dire situation, and also nearly didn't notice the small army behind her. To her right was a freakishly tall and broad man with a tattered fedora casting a shadow over his gaunt, lifeless face. He carried a huge concrete pillar over his shoulder that required some maneuvering to get into the building without breaking the glass doors. To her left was another man with prominent bionic eyes that glowed red. He was wearing a DRI-fit tank top to showcase the fearsome weaponry that was his extensively augmented arms. About a dozen goons brought up the rear. They were armed with high-caliber firearms and a number of electroshock weapons that Ramon had only seen on TV. She escaped, the terrifying bombshell he assumed to be called Stella yelled to her phone. What do you mean she escaped? You numbskulls. How did you lose a stupid blonde? Something wrong, Stella. Mr. said. You idiots better find her, she shouted, or you're all going to be cut off from the supply. She ended the call and growled in annoyance, making an almost beast-like sound that made the hair on the back of Ramon's neck stand on end. Hello, mister. Just a slight hiccup in our plans. She checked her appearance on her phone's camera. A hair fell out of place. Actually, it's not related to our ultimate goal of field testing the XR series, so I shouldn't get too worked up. You know that I, more than anyone, want to see my children perform on the stage, but I just want to reiterate my misgivings about this. Bid's not going to like this very much, Slinky said. If she's even going to show up. Aaron Hartwell, the guy with the heavy augments, said. Ramon's ear perked up upon hearing that name. Aaron? Did they mean his precious Aaron? It wasn't a common name, especially for a girl. What did they want with her? If that's what Boss Mark and Big Marcy wants, Mr. said with a shrug. It is. They kidnapped Aaron before. Did he understand that correctly? Ramon had no clue what was going on, but these people didn't mean her any good for sure. Was that why she was gone for some time? Could she have been hiding away from them after she escaped? They found her now. If you're going to use the elevators, I suggest the freight elevator at the parking area because we're going to disable these ones soon, he said, pointing to the left and right corridors leading to the elevators of the two wings of the building. We also placed a few of my children in these elevators just in case someone unlucky tried to escape that way before we did. Stella's gaze fell on Ramon, seemingly noticing him for the first time. What's this? Then she looked at Bodhi and Johnson. And this, and that? I wanted this kid to witness my work. He would appreciate this science lesson. You see, one of my children has connected to the brain of this man after he nearly killed himself and damaged his brain, although not in an immediately fatal way. And it seems to be working despite my initial assumption that my child wouldn't be able to salvage the situation, so to speak. It will be fascinating to see. Spare me the explanations, mister. I'm sure I will not be able to appreciate it the same way you do, and I don't think this kid will as well. Gun. Bodhi. But instead of coming closer to help him, Ramon backed away. Bodhi, he repeated his friend's name, but this time in a horrified tone as the once nearly dying man stood up, wisps of smoke coming out of the pores of his skin, his ears, and the bloodied mess that was his face. Patches of skin started to burn like there was fire inside of him. So, that explains these two people, Stella said. But what about the fat one? He's injured. Not a concern. Although my child who's supposed to take over him was unfortunately destroyed. Stella snapped her fingers at the giant of a man holding the concrete pillar and pointed at Johnson. Then she looked at Ramon straight in the eye. Despite himself, his heart skipped a beat. I do value educating the next generation, she said. Perhaps it is a better teaching moment if you ordered this, smoke person. Wham! The floor shook. In a flash, the augmented man was in front of Stella, shielding her from a shower of blood and pieces of flesh. Slinky held out his trench coat to cover Ramon. All of them looked at the colossal man wearing a fedora, then down at the floor where Johnson's body was squashed under the thick concrete pillar. Stella, don't get angry at him, Mr. said. You know you have to give him clear instructions. Whatever. Speaking of giving instructions, you order your smoke creature here to kill this kid. That don't work like that, Miss Stella, Slinky said. Only simple instructions that don't. Maybe it can work. Mr. said, his face contorting with intense excitement which was made even scarier by Johnson's blood that covered his right cheek. Maybe it can. They both know each other and... I trust your theory, Stella said, just do it. Ramon was zoning out when he realized what was going to happen. Johnson's death, Bodhi's fate that was worse than death, the threat of Adumbrae, all of the things he should worry about took a back seat in his mind as he realized there was a chance he could live. His heart pumped even faster. His hands tingled with excitement and hope. They were letting him go. Yes, he was in a monster-infested building with the monster Bodhi chasing him. But I have a chance. They weren't going to execute him right here, right now. His mind raced, thinking of a plan what to do next while he watched Mr. give instructions to Bodhi. Slinky went beside him while trying to remove pieces of Johnson that stuck to his bandages. Like I said, kid. Wrong place, wrong time. But you said you weren't going to do anything bad to me, Ramon stupidly replied, knowing that that didn't mean anything to these people. Sorry kid, for what's that's worth. Slinky handed to him a knife. Might be of use to ya. He looked at it confused. Wasn't this Bodhi's knife that he used to kill the slug inside Johnson? I'll lead the way to the freight elevator, Mr. said to Stella, since we're going in the same direction. I really feel bad about this, to be honest with ya, Slinky said with sincerity that might have been genuine. The monster Bodhi croaked, spewing smoke around him, and stretched his arms as he wandered towards Ramon. You have to run now. With a determined look in his face, he said firmly, can you delay disabling the elevators for a bit? Even if Slinky's face was wrapped in bandages, Ramon could tell the man was smiling based on the contours of his face. Sure, kid. I could do that. Do your best. I'm rooting for ya. He stood up and sprinted to the elevators, the gun in his hand, the Swiss knife in his pocket. There was no way he was going to survive here on the ground floor. This place was crawling with these Adumbrae and who know what other monsters. The Adumbrae also made sure no one would be able to get out of this place, so there was no point trying. The way to go is up. He was certain that the mysterious thing covering the building was the reason why he didn't have a phone signal. But maybe he could call for the bid at the top of the building. There was only one person guarding that place according to Mr. Better try his luck up there than down here. Yes. The elevator that Slinky used was still open. Ramon got in and pressed the button for the 22nd floor. He spotted the monster Bodhi running into the corridor just as the elevator doors closed. Sorry I couldn't save you. But I'll try my best to save another. He wasn't going to leave Erend here alone. The plan was to get her then go to the roof. What is her room number again? Did he forget it? He sensed that he was forgetting something else. Clank. Clank, clank. Was something up there? Above the carriage? Mr. said they were going to disable the elevators. Didn't he also say he left some of his children in here? Ramon slowly looked up.